back, Ginny. We're good.
Live stream.
Hey, everybody. My name is Hook Cunningham, and I am finally here. Finally here with my honorable co-host, the world's handsomest man, Frank Oliver Baines. This is the Pork and Bean Show. Sorry, Jenny, if you haven't seen our introduction before, it's just self-indulgence, I guess. But anyway.
It's okay.
And world's greatest animal communicator today.
That would be self-indulgent.
And anyway,
she's the most humble.
So this is the Pork and Bean Show, and our special guest today is Ginny Jablonski. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thank you guys so much for having me back.
Yeah,
I want you to be a regular a contributor, co-host.
Well, I don't know if I can rise to that moniker, but I would be happy to come back for sure.
Yeah, we definitely want to have you as Mr. Beans has been trying to replace me or forever. or maybe he wants out. I don't know. It's one of the two. It's one of the two. It's yeah.
Just when some people have such a depth of understanding, a compassion, and are given what do you call it? They're given something to say. You've got something to say. You know, you have like a mission, you have a quest, and you're getting a lot of spiritual help and guidance, and you know, that makes you like a major player in my book. You know, this is like the Super Bowl of consciousness and awakening. You know, this is like the major events going on Earth where human beings are waking up, and you're a big part of that. And after human beings wake up, they got to say, well, look, there's these animals out here, and everybody needs to be, you know, the all one includes all the animals too. And I think that's one of the messages the Sasquatch people have, is like, you know, one of the things that they said that I heard them say is, if you how you treat the littlest things, like the littlest flower, is symbolic of who you are. You know, it's how you treat the small and the small things. And we treat animals kind of small, you know, like they're not as important or something, or they're not. Some people think that animals don't have souls and that they don't have consciousness, or, you know, and God forbid they could mind speak. But that's like a new, what do you call it? A new understanding that needs to be firmly entrenched on Earth at this time, is that everything is conscious, and you can communicate with everything. And this is the American Indians' point of view. You know, the American Indians, they go, you know, we're one web of life. The tree, we are the one with the trees, one with the sun and the nature and the elements. So that's probably the oldest way of living that humanity has known, is to be part of nature instead of separate from nature.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, when you're in that space or that love vibration, you don't have any judgment about smaller or greater or whatever. Everything is perfectly just is, right? You know, like you know, you don't judge the ant as though you're just an ant or stuff like that. My wife had a really interesting lesson with that one time, where she was and you know, we're always learning these lessons, right? You know, people who are kind of awakening up and are here to kind of way show, or whatever you want to say, constantly learning lessons. And one of the great ones my wife learned in this particular thing was, she was traveling. This is very early on in her awakening, right? She's traveling along and she gets out of a car and whatever, and she sees a beautiful flower on the side of the road and compliments it and says how beautiful it is. And then this weed was right beside it, and it kind of communicated with her in some way and said, well, what about me? Am I not beautiful too? And it was really, really profound for her. So it's just like the judgment thing is taking us totally away from who we truly are, you know? You know what I mean? It's just taking us, it's not who we are. Our true nature is not judgmental. So
Judgment, as in a court of law, implies guilt.
well,
Judgment
yeah,
and guilt demands a sacrifice.
yeah.
And we are the sacrifice on the altar of guilt. So whenever you judge, there's a guilt involved, guilt or shame, and we end up on the short end of the stick of that when we're judged.
One
Yeah.
of the things,
And anytime we judge anybody, you automatically go to a lower vibration. Our job here, the Sasquatch people's mission, Star Nations, whatever, people who are waking up, that's what it's all about, is to open up our consciousness, right? That's all it's about. Go ahead.
that's one of the things that I enjoy and very much appreciate about working with people over the phone and animals over the phone. I can't see their physical vessel, and I can tell them how magnificent they are and how beautiful their energy is, and how I can feel their heart and their compassion, and I see their soul, and I sometimes can see people's superpower, and I often know, why they've experienced what we would call hardships, and I can translate that from their soul agreement. A lot of times people will call me. I recently had a gentleman from Texas call me and say, I've had so many experiences of judging myself because I judge others. I can't walk down the street without judging others. What's wrong with me? And I said, well, let's do a session, and first thing that came up, his soul agreement came front and center. And number 2 or 3 on the soul agreement was fear of judgment of others, to get over the fear and experience. And so I asked, have you learned enough from that? Do you feel like you've conquered that fear? And he was able to move on from that experience. But I think that's one of the things that's a true blessing working from a distance, is we don't get stuck on, the size of people's body or their color of their skin or whether their teeth are perfect or what have you.
Yeah. I want to get into, how this opened up for you, your early years and whatever, and kind of what you do. But I had a couple funny little things that just came to my mind, and I was thinking, I got to know this. You remember like Scooby-Doo and what was Shaggy? Remember when Scooby-Doo used to go, like he'd turn his head and go, hmm? Like he'd look at him like, what the heck kind of look? Real dogs, real animals kind of do that. They'll give you that look like, huh? You know what I mean?
Right.
Have they ever shared their thoughts of what they're thinking, or something humorous and something along those lines, like, what's that stupid human doing, or kind of thing? Do you have any funny stories like that?
I don't really have a lot of funny stories. I have a lot of very serious, profound stories of animals using their psychic senses, and of animals having opinions, and sometimes the things they say make you giggle and seem a little silly, but more often than not, it's very literal, very intelligent, very wise interactions.
So it's not like, I'll look at that guy, whatever. And geez, nothing like that. It's a little more direct and serious. Yeah.
Well, sometimes we have to laugh at ourselves as humans, right? So once I was in Colorado, and a woman had a concern about a pit bull that was brought home by the neighbor in the backyard. And, I don't regularly or really ever communicate with animals that don't belong to my clients. But she was outside in the backyard talking a lot about this animal and just saying hi. And she had permission, to scratch it over the fence or talk to it or what have you. But I had no permission to communicate back and forth with the animal. But the animal just expressed very loudly. The dog, her dog, pardon me, I'm a bit confused. So it was about the neighbor dog, but I believe it was her dog that expressed this to me. Her dog said that dog has a lot of female egoic energy on it. And I thought, what an odd thing to say. Why would my friend's dog, say that? And immediately the neighbor dog said to me, oh, because my owner is a woman and she's a narcissist. So,
Wow.
I mean, we could giggle a bit about that, but it's a serious thing. And we as humans do project quite a bit on animals. We project quite a bit on one another, which is one of the reasons why I talk so much in my work about the surface of our auric field being profoundly impacted by the collective consciousness and people's opinions and thoughts and projections. And I'm the only one I've ever heard talk about the surface of the auric field and how other people's projections can build up on the outside of our auric field and affect us. So anyway, I mean, I've had thousands and thousands of conversations with animals. I don't always remember them all. I've written 40 or 50 blogs about them. But if you had a specific question, I could kind of ask my consciousness, what would be the best thing to bring forward.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how it works for you. So you actually hear them talking, like mind speak in your head, or is it a vibration, a feeling? How do you receive the messages?
Well, it's not limited to my psychic ability only. It's also affected by the psychic ability of the animal and how they express. So animals, just like humans, can have trauma and wounds, and their heart chakras can be shut down, and their crown chakras, or not shut down, but impacted. And having that true, direct, authentic, clear connection can be interfered with. So some animals express themselves in emotion, some in color, some in an absolute download of a sense of experience, and some literally communicate in a stream of consciousness through several sentences or paragraphs. I've seen some animals communicate through me with symbols, and the symbols come through what people would refer to as higher self, through my crown chakra down to be interpreted through my psychospiritual apparatus, through my third eye, and the multiple layers of my throat chakra, including my ear chakras. One of the things that's, I think, a little bit different about me is that I can see energy as well as hear energy, as well as feel energy and interpret energy. So I do get to see, sense, and feel in different ways. I don't just go into the thoughts or memories of an animal and pick out the ones that are relevant to the conversation. I've been guided to honor the animals and share only what they are willing to share with me.
So let me I want to get into how everything started for you, but are they that articulate and intelligent, or is it just your interpretation of what they're saying? Do you know what I mean? Are they actually, because you don't think of animals being able to, carry on a conversation with you and have that degree of intelligence. So is it your interpretation, or are they actually that intelligent?
Well, I know a lot of human beings that aren't capable of having a very intelligent conversation with me. And no, I've never met one animal's consciousness express in the exact same way as another animal's consciousness. So what we're talking about and what you were talking about in the beginning, Brian, is consciousness and everything expressing itself as consciousness.
Right.
And when I came back from my second near-death experience, I could see and hear and sense multiple layers of consciousness around all living things. And so I am able to communicate with consciousness. Does every dog, cat, or horse, or goat, or pig, or fish I communicate with, a very eloquent, wise being expressing themselves in a way that is so remarkable that it makes me cry? No, but it happens quite a bit. There are some who are shy and may have that wise, capable intelligence underneath trauma, and I'm just not able to perceive it yet. I've really only ever met one horse that just wanted to be a horse. Ride me, I'm a horse, leave me alone otherwise. Most horses I meet have other things to say and other concerns going on. Of course, some horses want to be ridden and be a horse, but they also, for the most part, horses are looking for partnership, balance, and equanimity in a partnership and an owner, animal situation. So absolutely, Brian, absolutely. I have had some of the most enlightening, uplifting perspectives come from animals, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm. So all these abilities, gifts opened up for you after a near-death experience?
It was like when I came back from my near-death experience, every psychic sense was turned on and up to full 100%.
Wow.
And it was a little scary, a little maddening, a little concerning. It took me years to travel around the country and travel across the globe to seek out the guidance of masters and teachers and gurus and study and find out what it was that was happening to me. Some of what was happening was a little bit beyond most people I had ever met. And so it took me several years, many years to meet people that could, resonate with me. And I think, people like us, we find one another, the people in your audience. It's so wonderful now that there are groups like this, that like-minded individuals or people with similar soul purposes, or people from the starseed perspective, from different soul lineages and different planetary, galactic cosmic experiences, are gathering together. Because I had never heard of the word alternative healing or psychic gifts or spirituality or chakra before. It took me many years to understand what was happening to me. And I went through quite a number of people who were trying to tell me that I was wrong because they had not progressed that far on their journey yet either. And so I came back with gifts and abilities, but I also came back a person with a lifetime of trauma and experience that needed to be unpacked in order to fully reclaim my sovereignty, stand in my power, express my consciousness at a level that was congruent with the abilities that I was expressing. So there's a lot of work involved in that.
What do animals think of the afterlife or being eternal beings? Do they have a perspective on it?
That's not something that I regularly talk about with animals. My role is more sort of one-on-one, healing this life experience, past life experiences, soul wounds, making sure people have guides, appropriate guides for them, making sure we're managing our own energies. I'm not one that's not my lane. You know, there are a lot of other people with frankly quite varying opinions on that subject who have written books.
Yeah.
And I have tried not to insert myself in conversations where it's not my lane, that's not my information. I always say I'm never going to write a book about how the universe works because nobody's shown me the truth yet. I'm quite aware of various opinions about that. I can tell you what I see and experience, but it's only my perspective, which might be jaded by my soul lineage or my past lives. And I know that is really a thing. It's a thing that the symbols we see and the metaphor we use and what we resonate with oftentimes is very closely associated with our soul lineage and our soul purpose.
But basically though, but you did say when you do soul work on animals too.
Yes.
So you're aware that they're, you know, that they just don't live, and you know they're actually have an afterlife, which yeah, which is actually, let me just quickly say, which is really which you know, I've had a bunch of dreams with Sasquatch and stuff. Like some dreams are very real. When Sasquatch appear in your dream, it's not a dream. They're actually appearing in your dream. And I had a dream when one of my little doggies, one of my favorite little dogs I've ever had, Chewy, he passed on, and he came and visited me one night. I had a dream, and it was like one of those Sasquatch dreams, right? And I was playing with him in a big open field with flowers. And I remember there's a big oak tree, and we were sitting under it, running around and playing. And I thought it was like the Rainbow Bridge, right? And it was basically, he was saying goodbye. And when I woke up, I felt so beautiful. I felt so like, oh my God, you know, he's going on and I'm going to meet him again. And it was just so unbelievably heartfelt. And I knew it was real. It was not a dream.
Well, a lot of the experiences we have at night when we're sleeping are literally our soul traveling in the astral realm in different octaves of the astral realm. And that is very real. Most of us are shielded from conscious awareness of what we are doing when we're sleeping for various reasons. Probably one of the most important is, how would we be a regular, you know, human and get up and go to work at the gas station or the grocery store when we knew we were on another planet or a spaceship last night, you know? But I mean, 100%, I do not have a shred of doubt, not a photon of light of doubt within my entire being, that all of this is very real. And just to answer maybe your previous question a little more specifically, I can share with you how I see souls working and soul groups working, but I just want to say to everybody that my truth might not resonate with them, and my experience hasn't been exactly the same for every animal or every person. Every day I say at least 2 or 3 times, I've never heard that before. I've never seen that before. And I wish I had met more people on my journey that were willing to say, this is new to me, let me meditate on that. Maybe this is a new door being opened in my consciousness to explore higher realms, or to begin to wake up tomorrow and express my consciousness in a different way, at a different level. And I know that that is challenging for some people. It is not in any way challenging for me.
People. Do you communicate with people without them talking to you?
Well, the answer to that is probably multiple layers. I can hear people's thoughts. And when I first came back from my near-death experience, it was as if I was in a soup of hearing people's thoughts, people's trauma, people's intention. I could see the incongruity between what they were saying, consciously speaking out of their mouth, and what their true intention was in their heart or their mind. I can hear the consciousness that is projected toward people, racial biases, gender biases, family judgment of people, other people saying that.
Tell them about the bacteria, that where you can actually hear the bacteria, or you actually can feel the bacteria's consciousness in your body.
Well, most people, I think, don't realize that all the thoughts we have are not necessarily our thoughts. We are actually hearing the thoughts of parasites in the astral realm. We're hearing the thoughts of parasites in our stomach, or bacteria, viruses. I recently had an experience a couple of months ago, about 2 months ago, where I got in the car with someone, and I heard very clearly, the Omicron virus is present in the car with you. And I said, oh, hello. I guess this means I'm going to be getting the virus. And the virus said to me, I prefer not to do this job anymore. I don't want to hurt people anymore. And I said, well, what would you like to do? And he said, I would like to contribute to health and wellness. And I said, well, let's ask, Creator, if we can switch your purpose. And then I gladly accepted a virus into my body whose purpose was to support health and wellness. I mean, these are just things, random things that have been happening to me for a decade every day. And all I've done is talk about this consciously, literally out loud with as many people who will talk to me. Anybody that I could pay an hourly wage to, I would travel and, meet and work with people for a week or 2 weeks, or go to workshops, or learning different healing modalities, studying different spiritual philosophies, and just to hear everybody's opinions, because I saw a lot of symbol, I saw a lot of metaphor, I saw, the org chart for the soul families. I had experiences in the Akashic records, but it was rarely very congruous. I mean, in other words, everybody's experience wasn't the same. And now, in the beginning, it was very confusing, and I thought, how could any of this be true? And I found out, in fact, all of it really was true. And that is one of the most remarkable things for an intuitive, is to be able to be intersubjective. So, you have your objective reality, I have my objective reality, and then we have our subjective experiences, which are not congruous between you and I. And so, where that would have been very confusing to me, and is confusing to a lot of people, and it makes people gather in tribes because you believe this, and my God is better than yours, or my religion is better than yours, where I now feel that I pride myself on the fact that I can stand in that intersubjective space between your subjective reality and my subjective reality, and totally honor your subjective reality and witness it for what it is, your truth. And I think that's where the world is going. I'm hoping that we will all become more open to that, and more intuitive, and lay down the belief systems and the religious protocols, and
or at least the hardness of them. And you don't have to be hard and fast. My worldview, I don't even have to believe in it. And so I don't have to have that. It's that hard and fast, my way or the highway, that it has to be softened up a little bit with, there's a belief for every blade of grass.
Yeah, I always say, I never say I believe. I always say I resonate today with, and tomorrow could be different. And I have learned that thousands of times. And my soul, my consciousness, the consciousness of my soul has taken me on a guided tour of so many past lives where I believed completely contrary things, right? And I had to reconcile that, and took me on many past lives where I misused my ability to be a healer, where I was a shaman or a sage or a teacher or a guru, but also many times where I was an initiate and I had been taken advantage of by the master teacher or guru. And so, because for my soul purpose, the consciousness of my soul has guided me so clearly to the fallibility of all souls, and the wide range of experience we have all had, which is making it very difficult for all of us on Earth to resonate with one another, and to heal yourself to the point where another person's trauma or another person's beliefs don't trigger you into blaming or shaming or judging them is a real feat. And I have been working toward that every day for the last 10 years. Because I came up against it so much on my journey. I came up against those who would say, what you are saying, what you are seeing, what you are sensing cannot be true because that's not how the universe works. And I'd say, but it's right there. How can that not be true? Like, I'm seeing the person behind you with his hand in your back controlling you, making you say that right now. So, sorry, not sorry. I guess I'll move on
Oh,
down
you're saying
the
that the
road.
hand of ancestral belief or
Oh,
yeah,
a bucket full of.
yeah. We still haven't gotten over the witch burnings, you know. I mean, when somebody says, when you say to a Christian, I don't really believe in Christ, and you see a shock go through them, and it's like that shock is all the times that they saw somebody being burned or they heard horrible stories about hell and stuff. That's not in this lifetime. That goes way back.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say about beliefs is that most of our pain really comes from broken beliefs. Like, we believe that the people, our family, is the ones who's supposed to love us, all the time. And then when the family doesn't love us all the time, or they do some horrible, strange, awful stuff, it's that broken belief, but if the guy at the grocery store wants to do something awful, you just roll it off like, you don't have that belief about the guy at the grocery store, but you do about your family or your husband and wife or whatever. And it's these broken beliefs that cause a lot of real heartbreak and like, my world's coming apart because, you're supposed to love me and you're treating me like, but then the reality is that 2/3 of the people, family, really don't care for them that much in the way that feels good to them.
And my life was fraught with those experiences. And because I could see my own trauma within my own nervous system, within my own meridians, my own chakra system, in my subtle bodies, I got a front row seat really at what Dr. Gabor Mate says, and that is, trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you. And the energies and the beliefs and the coping mechanisms that we create on an energetic level is what I have had a lot of firsthand experience of witnessing in myself and healing and releasing for myself. Because, Michael, as you know, when that happens, that's where the doubt, the unworthiness, the shame, the I can't be safe in a relationship, I will never be loved, I will never be successful, I will never be happy, I don't deserve these things, right? And those,
which are all conclusions based on traumatic or some event and words spoken or feeling judged, and then we form the conclusion, and the conclusion becomes our PTSD.
yes.
Yeah.
And it becomes, it registers in our subconscious. It becomes a memory that has not been processed by the mind. So it is encased in emotion and judgment. It is held in the body as physical pain. Yes, you and I very much agree on many of these points. Yes.
By the way, that virus that you had a conversation with,
Mm-hmm.
I've got it right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel good. Feel really good.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a weak ass cold.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. I think maybe, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing about horses and humans and animals. There seems to be that in our life, not everything is rosy. I mean, maybe the whole of nature is positive and only bad things happen. But is there some kind of a reason or a cause or for so much trouble and anxiety and trauma in people's lives? Is there a purpose to it, or is it just that we have blind ignorance of how our consciousness in life works? So therefore, we don't really have the skills to be resilient when really bad things happen. Or is it there's something else going on here, because that's one of the great mysteries, is that, you know, there's pain and the fear of pain that seems to run rampant in the world. And that's what the near-death experience people talk about, and that's what the dark night of the soul and the inner child work and all that stuff, that's what it's all about. So, but is there a purpose to that, or is that an accident, or is it part of the universe kind of thing?
Well, I think it's a little bit of everything. I think there's a lot of truth to everything you just said. I mean, firstly, we are born for the most part in a world that doesn't honor our divinity, that doesn't honor the fact that we are infinite souls, that we are not brought up in cultures that celebrate magnificence. We shame our children, you know, we yell at them. If most adults knew the internal damage we were doing to children, I think we would change our ways. But, you know, so there's so many different conversations here that we could have. We could talk about our society, we could talk about religion, we could talk about our forgetfulness, we could talk about the soul's purpose in coming to this third density reality, which many people say is the most difficult school in the universe, which I absolutely agree with, and the pre-birth soul agreements, which I do work with. But I have also, guys, I have met people whose soul purpose has been altered, where they have, you know, their purpose has basically been hijacked in whatever distorted, you know, reality we are living in now. That does exist. That is a thing. You know, different souls come here for different reasons. Some souls are here now for the first time, or they've only been on this planet very few times, and it is only for the purpose of the evolution of humanity, being love, being light, holding space, doing the best they can. And I'm one of those who tried that and fell into the trauma, you know, and fell just as hard as anyone else into these traps and these tricks and all of this stuff. And I can say for one person that I can tell you 100%, it was never a plan from my soul's perspective to struggle and suffer and experience as much pain as I have. And I think that the original plan and the original intention for our experiences has gone a little bit off the original divine intention, and we are ending up being at the effect of past life choices, archetypes that we were meant to be in this life. And then when we pass, some of the consequences of that end up in our next life, and we get really confused because we're no longer just at the effect of our soul agreement, we're at the effect of unresolved energies from prior soul agreements. It's very complicated. It's very complicated. But everything you said is true, Michael, and you spoke a lot of wisdom in the questions. And, you know, a lot of people focus on the divinity of it all, that there is a divine order, that we are on the in-breath of creation, that everything is resolving now. And some people are here for that purpose, and some people need that message. And as you both talked about, some people have near-death experiences and come back and share the message. You know, heaven is real, God is real, Jesus is real, whatever. The only thing that matters is love. And they take that and they run with it. And that makes them so content, and they're able to live a more contented, joyful life and experience. And that's wonderful. And then there are people like myself who fall, I think, more into the category of the resolution and helping people who are stuck, who are traumatized, who are confused, who are in our ignorance and forgetfulness, have made some choices that it's very hard to climb out of. You know, I kind of fit into that category, where I'm here to help as many people who come in front of me get a leg up and help them remember who they are and remember that there are tools that we can use to overcome these things. But I mean, everything you said is true, Michael. There's not one answer. And to just, I think I wouldn't be honest and sincere to say that I believe that everything is perfect and working out in perfect plan, because I work with too many people and animals, and I've had so many souls, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of souls tell me this is not what I expected.
Yeah.
Right. And I can't deny that, and I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I like what you said about how we're with the children, because one of the things that my Sasquatch teachers have taught me really pushing hard or whatever is that, like, we are eternal beings. We are all connected. We're all one. We're energy beings, division, all this stuff is all lies. And the crimes that we perpetrate against our children right from birth, division, hatred, we don't like this, don't do, all these things that take us away from connectiveness and make us divided, that's exactly 100% against our true nature. And that's the reason why, and that's the reason why, in my opinion, the Sasquatch people are here to raise our consciousness, because when we're in that state of judgment and in that, over the generation kind of thing of parents teaching children or whatever, we're going further and further away from our true nature. So it's time now to realize who we are. That's got to stop. That's got to stop.
I mean, how many people in this community have we all met that say, when I was a child, I talked to angels, or I talked to animals, or I talked to plants, or I had visitation from my star family, and I shut it down because nobody believed me. How many of us at this age range, I'm 56, right? And I definitely feel very strongly that people like us are part of a group of a couple of 100 million people that came from the past back to Earth to try to ensure that there is support and compassion and tolerance for all the choices we have all made in order to help us through this transition and through this evolution. And I 100% believe that the Sasquatch, the Yeti, have been here all along to support humans in remembering the truth of who they are.
Right.
And one of their messages is, as we all know, is to focus on the heart and heal that heart and heal the trauma so that we can raise our frequency and elevate our consciousness. Some people have a more difficult time doing that. They can't just be here now, make a choice to be happy. I have a wonderful story about horses that I could speak to about that in a moment if you would like. For some people, it is more difficult to, and some people just say, raise your frequency. But the people that just say, just raise your frequency, and I've even had someone's guide tell them, just raise your frequency, don't worry about anything else. But that is not a person who at the bottom of their contract, it says unification. It just says resolution. And there's a difference between a soul agreement that says resolution and unification. Someone here to experience unification is gathering all their soul fractals from different timelines and different lifetimes in the third and fourth density. And when they incarnate again, they will be fifth dimensional beings. They will not return in their entire soul lineage. They will not return to this lower density. So there are some people who really believe, look, just get through this life. What they're really saying, just raise your frequency. They're saying, I can't see energy. I don't really know what's going on. And I don't care about that because that's not my soul purpose. My soul purpose is just to get by and support the people that believe the way I believe and raise my frequency and get into the fourth dimension.
That's like living in a house that's just full of trash. And somebody says, well, just turn the air conditioner turn your air conditioner up and you'll be cool. And it's like, well, you're still living in a house full of trash, and only it's cooler trash. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the way I see it. Is you got to take care of the adversity, the trauma, the drama, whatever it is that's inside you, the relationship issues, the conflicts that we have, the judgments and denials, and all that stuff is just garbage in your auric field. And
Right.
you got to clear that stuff out one way or the other, or needs to get some help doing it.
But not everybody believes that. We have to honor those who choose to say, oh, I did Qigong 2 hours a day for a year and I had this, Kundalini awakening or whatever. And now I talk to the oversoul, or I talk to the higher self. I don't talk to the part of the consciousness that ever incarnated on earth. I only see the magnificence of everybody. There are groups of people who live in that way and still have past lives to clear up, because I see them twirling around in their field, but that's okay, because A, everybody gets to make their own choice and believe whatever they want. And B, I think the world needs a certain amount of everything is magnificent within the collective consciousness to temper, the darkness. And sometimes I see people who are making choices like that. I see their souls as making a tremendous sacrifice to then choose to come back again and do the difficult work in another lifetime. And so it's all in our perspective. And when we heal our triggers and we heal our preferences, our biases, our own internal beliefs, and our own judgment of our own self, we can then take, I think, a more like 60,000 foot view of everybody. But Michael, for me, in my experience, I'm with you. And those are the people that come to me and come to you and the Yeti and ask for help, because this is the octave that we are choosing to perceive. Does it mean that we are limited to this octave? No, I talk with very high dimensional beings, and I have a lot of friends who have healed their consciousness to the point where they're expressing themselves at 5D, 6D, whatever. But that, I think, other people's judgment of us saying, oh, they're toiling in the dirt, they only see the dark, they're focusing, and I don't think that's an accurate perspective of what your message is, what my message is. I think there are more people who need support to heal and to be able to elevate than not. And but again, everybody gets to make their choice what they want to preach.
We don't always have to be on the same page, right?
Exactly.
But because because I'm going to say, this is just my opinion from my experience. When I had a gift of a love zap by the Sasquatch people, where it was an all knowing, it was all connected. I think in that state it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's when I say about raising vibrations, when I'm in that state, there's nothing. Well, maybe I have to work on stuff, but it sure don't seem like it. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just perfect.
The rub,
There's no
the rub
judgment,
is
there's
how do you
love, there's
stay in
love.
that? How do you stay in that state? That's the rub.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
yes, true.
Anybody can
Yeah.
have a peak experience, but then you got to come back, do the laundry, fix the food.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, but you seem like it seems like there's hills and valleys, but with me, I get higher and higher and the valleys are less, and I'm, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's different for everybody. It's everybody's journey is different. If we all say, nothing very important or insightful today, that would probably be the most important and insightful thing we could say.
But I mean, we're all individuals. The Sasquatch are master teachers. Like what I got was like a true, absolutely amazing gift. Like I could, it was life changing, right? So everybody has their own experience, but I know that when I felt that, it was perfect. There was absolutely nothing. I didn't even have any thoughts or the need to formulate any, because it was just like, it is.
Right.
It is. I felt the little ant and the mighty mountain equal, everything just seemed like connected and perfect, right?
And it feels to me like a lot of experiences like that are an impetus to compel us to find what prevents us from being in that state for longer periods of time. As Michael said, in the beginning, those peak states might be temporary, but when we begin to know that there is more to us, remember the truth of who we are, remember the potential that we have, then we can come back and do our work and unpack the laundry or whatever it is
Yeah.
that frees us up to be in more regular, albeit them, somewhat temporary states of, whether it be peace, whether it be euphoria, whether it be profound love. And I've had all of those, but I also work with extremely traumatized animals and people. And then, sometimes am brought to tears by the cruelty of humanity as well. So I think it'll be a while before there's a great number of us who are able to maintain those peak states, but there are millions and millions of us working every day, to heal ourselves, to elevate our frequencies, to lift as many people up with us who wish to come along.
Yeah.
I love that you talk about Yeti, because most people, our audience is the Sasquatch, the what do they call them, boogers, and they have a lot of derogatory names. But the Sasquatch was never really on your radar, but the Yeti was. Could you talk about how you were kind of introduced to the Yeti, which is actually the Sasquatch, and this whole thing? I thought that was a pretty good story.
Well, a few months ago, 6 months, 7 months ago, out of the blue, I was guided to change the language on my website from animal communicator to intuitive, or maybe that was about a year ago. And then about 6 or 7 months ago, I was guided to write this phrase on the homepage of my website: promoting the evolution of interspecies consciousness. And I said, what does that mean? They said, oh, don't worry, you'll find out about it. So then 4 or 5 months ago or so, I was having some interesting experiences in my dream time, which I was not consciously aware of. And I would wake up in the morning and I would feel out of balance, buzzing, a higher energy. And I would have to go outside and ground or take a salt bath, or I was aware that I was healing at an accelerated rate to that from that which I was used to previously. And I had to release a lot of residual energy and just sort of like detritus or, distortions in my field that were shaken loose by whatever was happening to me in the night. And then one night I had a very clear vision in my sleep of these giant feet. And so I have a close girlfriend, and we talk several times a week. And, in the morning when we wake up, if we have an interesting dream or something that happened in the night. And I said, I had this vision of these feet, and I couldn't say for sure, but it must be some higher being, higher species. And she said, any chance it's the Himalayan Yeti? And I, checked in, I got, yes, that's exactly what it is. And I said, I think are they working with me, or are we? And so my girlfriend and I were having very similar experiences. And so shortly after that, and I don't remember the time frame. And when I shared this with you before, I don't have a diary, so I don't remember the exact time frame. But shortly after that, I was approached in the ethers, at the soul level by the Yeti, and asked if I would like to consciously work with them in this life. And I said, oh, time out. I don't really think I should answer that question from my humanness. Let's ask my soul and what is in my soul agreement. And so my understanding was that there was an agreement there, and I accepted that. And that night, around 9 or 10 o'clock, when I was going to sleep, I felt such a vibrational shift, and I was just vibrating, and stuff was flying off of me. And I felt like I was receiving codes and information. And so it was the middle of the night, and I texted my friend and I said, am I getting an upgrade to be able to communicate consciously with the Yeti? And, she agreed that was what was happening. And then within a few days or weeks, Michael, you contacted me, and I thought, you cannot make this up. What a coincidence, right?
Yeah. And my question was, how could she exist without being on the Sasquatch radar?
No coincidence with Sasquatch and this stuff.
Right.
That's one of the main things.
The Himalayan connection. I have a Sasquatch that has helped me a lot, as like a brother, and I was given some information that he was actually one of the ancient ones, and he was from the clan of Hanuman. You ever heard of Hanuman?
No.
Hanuman was part of the Ramayana, and he was a devotee to Lord Ram, and he was what do you call it? It ends up that in the Hindu mythology, Hanuman is the god of devotion to God. If you want to be devoted to God or have faith in God, you go to a Hanuman temple first, and then you go to your temple for your God, because you ask for devotion, right? You ask for faith, right? So this has been going on a long time. The Hanuman human connection to faith with God. So that Hanuman is the teacher, the representative of one who has great faith in God. And one of the stories was that, he picked up this mountain because he was supposed to get some herbs from the mountain to help Lord Ram's brother, who was poisoned. And he couldn't figure out what the herb was, so he brought the whole mountain with him. And that was maybe 7,000 years ago. And from that is when Christ said, if you have faith of a mustard seed, you can say to the mountain, move, and it will move.
Right.
So, and it was already like 5,000 years old, that saying. But anyway, when the yogis and when the people go to become gurus, where do they go? They go up into the Himalayas, and they sit in caves until they become enlightened. So there's this whole enlightenment connection. And then the same thing with the shamans. Shamans, they go out and do these 3-day fasts, and they pray and chant, and they want to have like a spirit awakening, And to me, whenever the darkness comes onto the earth, it is the Sasquatch, the Hanuman, the Hanuman type of people, the Yeti type people, that boost up and put back in correction, humanity. So there's a big connection to that. So to me, the whole Hindu Yeti thing is sort of like the homeland of the Sasquatch people in some ways, historically anyway.
Not only Hindu, because I've been shown a couple of past lives where I ascended through Tibetan Buddhism, and I was working, and that was my connection to the Yeti in a past life. So that's my experience and my knowledge shared with
anybody
me.
who wants to attain that ultimate
Right.
sort of devotion to God.
Right.
Yeah. We've got some questions. Remember, we had some questions lined up for you. Did you have a chance to look them over at all?
Oh, they're fascinating. Some of them are definitely above my pay grade, but
there was a few that were quite detailed. I mean, it's not how many, it's not the detail of the question, it's how many, right? Should we maybe pick some of the more detailed ones or something in a bit?
Yeah, sure. I can just hop off the video and go to the Facebook page and look at the questions.
Oh, no, I'll read it out to you.
Oh, okay.
Can I share something with you though? I don't know if you would have any insight in on it. Like my wife and I we have some incredible experiences together because we're so connected. You want to hear something really, really neat that happened yesterday? So I'm talking to her on Messenger chat, right? Like this, except on Messenger, talking. And I'm apologizing to her for something, right? I'm saying, oh, I'm sorry for, and then I heard her voice say, what for? And then I also heard her say, who said that? She didn't say the what for.
Right.
She did not say it. Somehow her voice, or what sounded like her voice, got into our conversation, and it was not from no exterior source. We didn't have anything else turned on or whatever. It just, I don't know. I mean, what the heck was that?
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Does your wife give me permission to talk about this publicly?
Well,
because I need her permission, conscious permission to look at her, or I can just say what you were hearing. Or I could
You know what?
answer.
You're going on Barbara Jean Lindsay's show tonight, our good friend, and she gave me permission for Barbara to look into it. So I'm sure she'll give you permission. And if not, I'll I'll suffer the consequences.
Well, absent actual permission, why don't I answer the question like this? Because I know what it is without even looking.
Do you want me to ask her? Do you want me to ask her permission?
Yeah.
Okay, if she's listening. Okay. Anyway, as I'm doing that, superpowers. What are people's superpowers, and how do you find out what they are? That's that intrigued me when you said does everybody have a superpower?
So by superpower, and this was introduced to me through my donkeys talking to people, my friends and clients and stuff. A superpower to me is not necessarily a psychic ability. A superpower is the gift, the quality they bring to the world. And oftentimes a superpower can be kindness, understanding, compassion, tolerance, non-judgment, celebrating the gifts of others. I mean, when you look at certain people in your life, can you recognize that certain people have these superpowers?
Yeah.
Because these are not qualities that everybody express, right?
Yeah. Okay, my wife gave me permission. So you want me to go over one more time what was said?
No, you don't have to tell me again.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask real quickly her soul and your soul. So just one moment. What's your wife's name, please?
Susan.
Okay, since we're going to be moving into the place of questions, would you guys mind if I just say a little intention for clarity and for truth for anybody who watches this and for discernment? So just one moment.
Cover your bases.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. Just because in talking to Susan's soul, I felt that I needed to say this before I completed that conversation. So this is what I say before I work with people, and sometimes I'm guided to share it with people. And anybody that likes this, please use it. This is just what I've been told to say, what I've been guided to say. I call on the blue light of clarity, the green light of healing, the violet flame of transmutation, and the golden light of grace to support our conversation and healing intentions today. I call in the highest aspects of ourselves that are aligned with the highest level of consciousness in this multiverse, the purest source frequencies to support us in our highest level of healing and the highest level of embodiment that is optimal for each of us. We ask for a frequency of purification and grace to envelop us and our entire being from all time and space and all directions, all levels, layers, dimensions of us. We ask our body, our mind, our energy field, and our soul to move into a space of allowing for the divine will, our highest good to manifest through us in this moment. For we are the light, we are the light, we are the light. And we shine the light of truth on this conversation. And my intention is to be the most accurate, loving messenger for people's souls and for people's guides in this conversation. So what is happening with you, Brian, is that you are beginning to hear your own consciousness communicate. You are beginning to hear the consciousness of others communicate. It's one thing for people to say, eventually, isn't it going to be so great and fun? We're going to be simultaneously aware of all of our past lives. And, but what about this? What about me? Who am I? What makes me me? Every cell of my body, every cell of your body has a consciousness. Your energy field, every subtle body of your energy field has a consciousness. And we have many parts and pieces and fractals of our consciousness, which have varying opinions, because at different times in our life, we have experienced trying circumstances and we've had to create coping mechanisms. So those will be the voices that we hear in our mind that tell us when we hang up. I might hear, oh, Michael doesn't really like you. He was just being nice to you.
Yeah.
Or, oh,
Can I clarify? We both heard it audibly.
Okay, I'm getting to that.
Yeah, we both heard it. Like it was like actually coming out of the speaker.
I know I'm
Okay.
trying to get there, but I'm trying to.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
If I don't lay foundation for everybody, then it'll only be an answer just for you. If you're
Okay.
asking it here, it's going to be an answer for 1,000 people,
My
right?
apologies. My apologies. Go
No,
ahead.
I just really want everybody to get a sense of where this is going.
Okay, I
Okay.
just got the idea that you thought it was just that I heard it in my head or something, but okay, go ahead.
Oh, but that's part of it. That's the evolution of it. The evolution of it is consciously hearing it. First, we hear it just in our mind, and then we hear it audibly. And it's hard at some point to discern between the hearing it in our mind and hearing it audibly. But when it comes through the speaker and we begin to have that level of conscious awareness, our own soul communicating to us that way. So I don't know where I was in the story, but I'm trying to explain to people that we are evolving to hear consciousness. And that's what happened to me 10 years ago, was I could hear the trauma in people's body. I could hear all of the things, right, most people couldn't hear. They say we as humans are aware of 1% of the entire spectrum of our reality. So you guys are becoming much more aware and shifting into a frequency where your consciousness, the consciousness of your soul, is expressing itself in your reality. And so that's the answer for you. And I got a little bit interrupted, so I lost my flow there, but does that make sense?
For me, it does, yeah.
Again, some people can hear their guides talking. Some people think their guides are talking to them, and it's really just parasites that want them to be angry and upset, right? I worked with a woman yesterday, a psychotherapist in Australia. We were on Zoom. And she had so many things attached to her because of her clients and because of the world that we live in, and because she wasn't having regular practices of clearing herself, that she literally broke down and cried and just about fell out of her chair when we just cleared the surface of her auric field, because she was hearing the attachments, the astral realm entities and beings. And so it can be a number of things, the things we hear, but for you and your wife, you are beginning to hear the part of your consciousness that is not necessarily in the body. That's what Susan's soul told me.
Oh, excellent.
And I'm getting a lot of other stuff, but it might not be appropriate for the greater audience, though. So after we turn off the recording,
Is
I
it
can
good
share.
stuff?
Yeah.
How long is it?
I don't know. There's a
Go
lot
for
right
it.
here wanting to come.
Go for it, as long as it's,
Don't go for it.
go for it.
Be
All right.
conservative.
Okay. Well, I had stepped away from it. So just a moment. Let me.
Step on back in time. I'm sorry. Singing into it.
And then I just want to say that just because I am bringing through this message, if it doesn't resonate as truth for you, please, please don't take it. If it in any way upsets or triggers, then we can find, what that is. But
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Susan's soul is telling me that you and she had a lifetime on another planet that was also going through an evolutionary process. Interestingly, I'm thinking it was in the Eta Pegasus galaxy or planet had something to do with very high density consciousness of horses stepping down and embodying into hybrid species that don't look necessarily very much like humans, and that you were a couple paired together and very metaphysically inclined in that life, and that planet was evolving from fourth to fifth density, and that you have come here as humans to experience again this partnership and this evolution, and bring with you the frequency, bring with you the experience, bring with you the groundedness, bring with you the faith, bring with you the self-confidence and the inner knowing and the alignment to be able to hold space for others in the same way I think you just did on this conversation. I don't know your wife personally or know what she does for a living, but I feel like her soul is also saying that the role that she played in her family, her birth family, is also pivotal and a big part of her soul experience. And I'm not getting much more on that. And that because of your prior experience on that other planet, that is one thing, Brian, for you, that is feeding into this, you're almost chosen by the Sasquatch, I guess.
Not almost.
Okay.
I'm not ego. They told me.
Right. I just wanted to make sure I didn't say it in a way that sounded like that. Chosen, well, that's the word I got, that because of your experience and other soul experiences with that lineage, the lineage of Sasquatch and the like, that you have been chosen, and that you may not consciously yet understand the tremendous importance of the role you are playing, but much more will be revealed, let's say, in the next 6 months to a year, is what I'm getting for you.
I feel growth all the time. I'm just vibrating with energy. Like I'm kind of like we're not the same, Jenny, but we both work with energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting lit up when I say that.
Yeah.
Sasquatch are saying yes.
Yeah.
That's because energy is the true universal language.
Yeah.
They don't talk to me in words. Well, they do. I have had mind speak. I've had all of that, all the different variations, but generally they talk to me in feelings and energy nudges and yes, this is right, or downloads or thought placement, that kind of thing. But it's all energy, right? It's all energy. Right. It's all beautiful. So
Brian's a sprout. He's sprouting.
Yeah. And Mr. Beans has got the watering jug and he's watering me liberally,
That's what the Pork and Bean Show is. It's basically it's our selfishness. We want to be exposed to all the cool people and do cool things. That's our.
Oh, we got an important show here because we don't hold anything back. We don't care about egos and, oh, geez, if I say this, I'm going to look like an idiot. I just say whatever happens, right? If I see a Sasquatch appear in my room out of thin air, or if I have a holographic vision or any of that stuff, I'm just going to tell it. I don't care who believes me. It's my responsibility, if I represent the Sasquatch people, to say it as it is. I'm not going to water it down and give a half truth. That's like, what are you doing?
What the Sasquatch can do for you. Ask what you can do for the Sasquatch.
Seriously, if you're talking and representing something, or you're got a mission or whatever you want to say it, if you're letting your ego stop you from saying the truth, then you're on the wrong track. There's something wrong. You have to get beyond that, right?
Do some house cleaning.
Yeah. So should I ask a question here?
Sure.
And I don't know, did you want to throw in the person's superpower too, or is that too hard to do? Can you see that as well with the person in the question, or do you want to do that?
No, just want to answer the
Um,
question, see how it goes.
Yeah, I don't think I'm supposed to do that.
Okay, no worries. I'm going to go over some of the ones that had, and if you only want to do two, so, and we can
Well,
split them up.
I'm happy to answer, 50 questions, but I don't want to get into a psychic conversation that could last 45 minutes more than twice.
Oh.
That's why I said two questions having to do with guides or channeling the Yeti, because the last time I did, it took me all day to ground myself.
Whoa. Was by
Okay.
ground, does that mean
Well-
you were elevated, or you were kind of
Yeah.
just discombobulated?
Yeah.
I was elevated, and I also, it had contemporaneous healing for me, and it took me out of my normal state of balance and alignment. And I have more clients today and another interview tonight, so I need to reserve my energy for the rest of the day.
Okay. Well, this is a really extensive question, so I don't know if you're going to be able to remember it all if I ask it. Should
Can
I
you
ask
just
it?
ask one part at a time?
Okay, Eric James. He says, I'm curious if they have religious beliefs. He's talking about the Sasquatch, of course, people. And if so, what are they? How do they feel about other religious beliefs?
Okay, can we stop there?
Yep.
The first thing I heard is nature is my church.
Yep.
And he's asking their opinion, but I want to insert my experience. I've been shown, and I could be wrong, I've been shown that beings from fifth dimension and above, that religion does not apply to higher dimensional beings, that religion is very much a third density earth human or third density incarnate experience, and trickling into fourth and taking some generations for the religious programming to be lifted to where we begin to understand, each of us, that we are all a part of God creation source, and that what the Sasquatch are saying is nature is my church. So that to me means oneness, that if we can live in balance and harmony with nature and the earth, and have reverence for one another, that's, I guess, all the religion we need.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. He's got a couple more things, so we'll just go over a couple. He's got a whole couple paragraphs. I'm not going to do all that.
Okay. The second part of your question is, what is their opinion about other religions? And
how do they feel about other religious beliefs?
They don't have opinions.
Yeah.
They don't judge.
Right. Yeah.
It is a
Good
part.
point.
It is a legitimate part. Well, I don't know that it was necessarily planned in the beginning, but it is a legitimate part of our experience, and people get to make the choices, whether it's hurting one another or not. They get to make those choices, so they're not judging us.
Yeah. Awesome. Then he says, where are they from? Here? For how long? So where are they originally from, and how long have they been here on Earth, I suppose?
Well, they're not all of them are from the same planet. I don't think. I think we tend to put them all in the same bucket.
Yeah.
I get that originally, though, the species originated in another galaxy, is what I'm being told, and I've never heard this before, and that they've been here for potentially millions of years.
On Earth.
And then I just heard that is true and correct. So normally if I channel something and I don't know, I've never heard it before, if I hear that is true and correct, then I am very confident that what I just channeled was accurate.
Okay. Will there ever come a day? Oh, and this is specific to him, but I think we should maybe make it specific to him to answer his question, but also generally for other people. he says, does there ever come a day that I will have direct communication with them? And let's also, like I said, take that to
And
general.
what is his name, please?
Eric James, E-R-I-C-H, different spelling.
Well, I get that he is having nighttime astral realm contact that he is not consciously aware of. I shy very much away from predictions, and his future is all about choices he makes. So there's no way to predict is the best way. The most energy is behind. I cannot answer that question because he needs to make choices to determine what the rest of his life will look like.
Yeah. Okay. Here's an interesting one. And well, I don't know if I should put the person's name out there in case the answer isn't, but there's a well-known guy in the Sasquatch world who refers to them, these people, as the Xanu. Is that true? Xanue.
I don't understand the question. Could you make the question more understandable for me?
This particular individual states that they call themselves Xanu. Is that
Who's
true?
they? Who's they?
The Sasquatch.
Whatever race of beings he is talking to call themselves that. And that information is true and correct for him and whomever this person is what I'm getting from the field. But I mean, so many people attach the title Sasquatch to different races of being is the sense I'm getting.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
And how many times do people feel that they have a relationship with Sasquatch, but it might be deceivery or trickery or somebody trying to, make them think that or whatever, something that's not, maybe not for their own good or whatever. Like personally, because I can read energy and stuff, I feel pretty confident in my ability to decipher that. But for other people who may not have these energy, gifts, and we all have different stuff, are there some people being deceived?
You know, what's really fascinating about what I'm being told, and I'm really checking in with my own heart and my own energy and how does this feel?
Yeah.
I'm getting two things. One, I'm getting, it is very uncommon for someone to believe they're experiencing, we'll just use the ubiquitous term Sasquatch, and then uncommon to believe that and it not be true. And the second thing I'm getting, which I've never heard this before, and this is fascinating, is that we know that shapeshifters and mimics and beings do pretend to be, angels and other beings. But what I was just told, and I've never heard this before, and this is, again, I could be wrong, and I think I'm speaking with your guide, Brian, the one that we spoke with last week.
When I was setting up the interview, RE?
Who that being, I'm asking if that's who's talking to me right now, because he's been in my office here all morning.
No, it is RE. I'm getting the
because he pressed on my head earlier today right here, and he said, please go take a bath and scrub yourself, or a shower and scrub yourself with salt and prepare for stop working and please go do some self-care before. And he touched me like that. And I felt the energy, and what he's telling me is that their signature, and by they, I don't know, it feels like the entire species, the race of beings, is so refined and so specific that shapeshifters and mimics are unable to pretend to be them. So that's a wonderful thing to hear and know.
However, they have no problem shape-shifting into humans, animals, or anything, really.
I can imagine that if you are a shapeshifter and you have that frequency and ability, it might be quite difficult for someone to copy you. This is new to me. Again, this whole conversation is very new to me, but when I ask my body if that is true, my bones are tingling.
Yeah.
Now, by shapeshift, it is probably necessary for them to appear in a way that is palatable and acceptable to us, to not frighten us.
Exactly. Yeah, I know that for a fact. Yeah.
It is not for purposes of malicious deception. That is not the purpose of it.
No, I mean, I had an experience where I saw a Sasquatch crossing a path, and my friend, who was just very, very early on in his journey, saw a little Scotty dog or something, right? So that's just how it works. So let me, we'll ask a couple more, I guess, but I just wanted to ask you, and this is really actually quite important to me when I think about it. Ask Ari, what does he call his people? Or what would he like me to call him? What is the most respectful name that we could call them? Because it's all about respect and love, and with them. He probably doesn't care.
No, he doesn't. I just get what's wrong with Sasquatch.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, exactly, right.
There were so many wonderful questions. Let's do some questions from Facebook.
Yeah, well, most of them were. I just asked you a couple of my own little. Okay, so Julie Turtle Hagen. This is a good friend of mine. You spoke about the different vibrational energies from specific species. Can you differentiate in ways others can relate when in contact with said different species? Or are there contact the same area of our bodies when this contact is made? I don't understand that. Did you get that?
Oh, who is you? You spoke about who's you? Who is she talking to? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. I assume you. Have you ever spoken to that?
Is that a live question that was just asked right now based on the live?
No, it's just one of those questions that was posted a few days ago.
Yeah.
You want to skip that one, or you don't understand it?
I don't remember ever talking about different vibration. I mean, although it's true, I don't have anything substantive to say about that. I'm not getting that it's important to talk about that. I don't really understand the question.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay.
I think what she's trying to say is can you tell us how you differentiate one species from another, or one being from another? And because I think that's kind of the core of her question.
Oh, that is a knowing. So claircognizance is clear knowing, and the information that comes from my higher self or my oversoul or another person's soul or oversoul is an universal language of symbol, that there is this symbol that our souls exchange, its data and information, and that comes in and I experience it as a knowing. So I might say to you, Michael, I can't see it, but I'm telling you, there's a 6 foot tall pink elephant in your room right now. Like that's, right? Or I could say, Brian, do you have a dog? Because there's a dog present, but I can't see the dog, and the dog didn't talk to me yet, but I just know there's a dog that wants to talk. Or I think there's a horse and it might be dead, or I think there's a horse and I'm pretty sure it's alive and it only has one eye. It's a knowing. It's a knowing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know that knowing. That's
and,
yeah.
And it's a knowing that I have spent a considerable amount of time and effort refining and confirming with many, many, many other people.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually a good question.
Yeah, that was a good question. Thank you, Michael, for helping me understand it.
Anita Hebachuk. Now, she is a sweet lady. She's just going through some chemotherapy. Maybe she's done now. but she has a question.
I
need to
answered
have a
her.
check. She says, what?
If you look below the question, I answered her already.
Oh, well, you weren't supposed to do that.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was important, but would you like to share please share the question and answer. It feels important to share it.
Yeah, I'm just, razzing you, of course. Well,
Start with the question again, Brian.
what question?
I need a heel back, buck. Heel check.
But she already answered it, she said.
Well, but I think it's important to say that her question was, I used to feel my guides close to me and now I'm on chemotherapy and I don't feel them anymore. And I responded that unfortunately, it is very true that many pharmaceutical medications can influence and interfere with our psychospiritual apparatus. And I just wished her well on her healing journey.
Yeah, there's one thing that I found out with my lessons with the Sasquatch is there are quiet times. I've gone through maybe at least a half a dozen of them where you've got intense activity, learning, and then there's a lull. And to me, it's a simulation period. Because when the activity and I come out of it starts happening again, it's like I have a way bigger, vast knowing. I guess I just seem to know more. It's like you said, that knowing. I come out of it with a wider consciousness or something, and that happens repeatedly. So maybe, although it could be, I'm sure the chemo or stuff like that isn't helping her. There is that as well, because I've gone through that a few times, and I remember when it initially happened, I thought, oh, don't they like me anymore? Like, what did I do something wrong? But it's just it's in the simulation period, at least with me.
Ari just came to me and I felt pressure on my face and he said, thank you, we are complete. So he's not going to answer any more questions today, just so you know.
Yeah, because you don't like giving me. He's told me many times, he says, you're not ready to, you're in time, like, yeah. Yeah, that
But
is.
there are lots of questions I think I can answer without the benefit of his direct input. So if you want to keep asking, some of the questions were pretty fascinating. It's up to you.
No, I absolutely do. But let me go and see if I can find some maybe live ones that they put in the on the live video. I'm just going to put myself on mute for a minute and go look. Okay, you guys want to carry on a little chat for a second?
Sure.
I can ask you a general question. We have this friend, Robin McCrae, and she actually does healing on the Sasquatch people because they just told her that she could do it. And so every once in a while they call her to do it. Do you think you would have the ability to do healing work on Sasquatch people?
That would never happen to me because I do not hold the belief that it is appropriate to heal anyone or anything. So that would never happen to me.
Oh, well, maybe you should define that because maybe healing was the wrong word.
Well, I asked if the Sasquatch would ever ask me to heal them, and I get no. Let me ask, if it were to be true in the future, if there is any potential that a Sasquatch soul would ask me for some sort of input, I get that there's a very slight possibility that would ever happen. And should that happen, would I be able to provide any insight? I get yes. So the way I work is I perceive people's body, mind, spirit, soul, and where there is trauma, trapped emotion, judgment, belief system, etc. And I share it with the person and I say, I see this in your field. Thank you for revealing in your field that this block or limitation exists. Would you like to let it go? And do you know that you are an infinite being of light and you have the ability to release this yourself? I I give an outside person's perspective, which I required a lot on my journey. I required someone to help me see what I could not see, or what in part of my consciousness I refused to see about my own self. And then when someone would help me understand what was blocking or limiting me, I then would take responsibility for releasing it. It has been years since I have allowed anyone to believe that they were the one healing me. I'm able to receive information from others and perspective and insight from others that can see, sense, and feel in ways that I can't about myself. And conversely, I do not do anything to other people. The most intervention I do in my work is create what I call little pink pillows of love, a very high frequency, that if there's something stuck in someone's field and they can't seem to move it or release it, I offer like a little pink baby blanket of love to their field, and they can take that frequency if they want or not into their field, and that will help to move whatever is stuck or languishing in their field, and it will begin to dissipate. But there are forces much greater than I in the universe who come to people to help to contribute to their healing. I witness and facilitate through sharing perspective.
So you don't believe in healers, basically? Or it's just not for you?
It's not my sole purpose. It's not for me to judge if someone else has a purpose to. I think it is true, and I have witnessed that there have been people who have had a purpose to be able to heal, profoundly heal others, in order to convince the masses that healing is true. However, I have seen a lot of that gone wrong, and I watch people heal people and take on their karma, and not be in a state of awareness as to what is really happening in the exchange between the people. And it doesn't, sometimes it is definitely not in what I would consider to be an integrity. But I mean, there's 8 billion people on the planet. There's probably 8 billion variations of this.
Well, I think that's a really high understanding, because there's this thing that happens with people, right? Wounding happens from the outside in. And when we seek to the outside for healing, even if we get the healing, we're still a victim. In other words, you're a victim when you were wounded, and then you go to somebody else, and then you become the passive receiver of the healing. And that never puts you in a place of power. The only place of power you had was in seeking for help. But
Yes,
when you have the understanding of there's stuff inside you, and if you can release this stuff, then you gain not only do you heal yourself by releasing whatever it is that comes into your frame, but you also gain power. In other words, you are initiating the healing inside yourself. And this is the place that you want to be. You want people to be empowered to heal themselves and to know that they have that power to do that. That's a whole different game. You know what I mean? And when you say in a prayer, I want to do this for the highest good. I want the highest good for the human and for myself. That is the highest good. The highest good is that they can initiate healing and guide and control and manifest the healing in themselves, and not be this passive receiver of energy boost from other people.
I have written several articles about this subject, and my directive, my intention is, if someone works with me, they will not hang up the phone feeling confused and disempowered. They will walk away with a greater understanding of themselves and others around them. And I will leave them with tools, and I will gladly share everything and anything I have ever learned that is relevant to them in that moment, so that after their experience with me, they don't feel like the only way they can heal is through another desperate attempt to, have me heal them. That is not my goal, to disempower people. My goal is for as many people, come into contact with me and my energy field and all of the experience in my energy field. I willingly share that with anyone,
The Sasquatch are healers, though. I've witnessed them healing people live, and they've actually been working with me on that. So what do you suggest? I tell them back off. I don't want to learn that.
No,
No.
that
This is
so
something different.
it's different. Well, okay. Every single person has soul agreements, partnership agreements, marriage agreements, parental agreements, agreements with guides. There is a belief that each person has at least 12 people in their life that they come in contact with that are legitimately able to hold space for them and to some degree miraculously heal them. It's different for every purpose, for every person. My purpose is not to be a healer. Although healing happens in my presence, my purpose is to help people remember the truth of who they are and empower people.
Right.
And in that facilitation of that remembering, healing will be a natural outcome if that person is ready and chooses.
I like that. I like that a
But
lot.
also the Sasquatch, they can do this to people that they may have had multiple lifetimes, multiple agreements with that person. And then this person is maybe that they need the healing and they're old or they're suffering. And at that point, it's like there's a brotherly kind of a thing. At that point, it would be appropriate for them. They know that their friend will not be around if they have a heart issue or if they have some kind of cancer or some kind of issue. Then they will heal them up to a certain point and so they can function and live and keep relating. So that's kind of like a different kind of healing. I'm not really sure it's the same kind of agenda going on there.
And I don't think it's as random as it sounds. I think that there is a soul agreement at play. Have I healed a dog's tumor before? Yeah. Did the dog choose to have another 30 days with its owner and then the tumor came back? Do I claim, that I alone have the power to override someone's karma and soul choices and heal them? I do not claim that. And what you're describing, I think we would have to look at every single interaction between two souls individually under the microscope to determine what on a universal level was at play in that exchange.
Yeah. Another question. I found one.
Okay.
Digginy Digginaw. It's quite the name. Digginy Digginaw. Ba 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 boo.
Sounds like a 60s.
You haven't been singing today, Mr. Beans.
You're doing
Sounds
good.
like a 60s cartoon character.
A little music's good, is good for the soul.
Digginy Digginaw asks, you know what? I think I'm going to start sing conversation. Now see with that. I'm going to.
It'll elevate our frequencies.
I'm going to try it for a day. Every conversation I'm going to say, yes, I believe you're right. And yes, it's always, you know what I mean? To see what people. Maybe I'll do it for the rest of the show. No, I'm just Digginy Digginaw. Do they gather at the same place every year? From what I understand, they gather once a year to look for mates and to trade stuff. The ones here, I thought, stayed here all year, but there's one particular forest person who has a distinct call, and I haven't heard him since last fall.
Okay, so the question was, do they, and I can only assume the group of beings that he is interacting with, I get the answer.
It's a female, actually.
I get the answer is yes, that they, whomever they are, that they do gather, and that that's a part of their ritual, and that they do have those types of societal rituals. That feels true. I think
Yeah.
I see the number 99, so that means it's like 99% true because there's more information to be known, but you know.
Yeah. And from my perspective, I would concur with that, because I know of a place in BC here where traditionally they would gather and for the same purpose. So I think that's true too. Yeah. I think that's true too. Any more questions? So how do you see the Sasquatch people? Are they fifth dimensional beings? I mean, they're obviously
The Yeti I work with, my understanding is they're sixth dimensional beings.
well, how about my guys? Like the Sasquatch people around me?
Are we?
Yeah. Are they sixth dimensional too? I mean,
I think so. I mean, based on my soul's understanding of densities.
and what is a sixth dimensional being? How would you describe that?
Again, I will never write a book about how the universe works. My understanding is densities. There are densities and there are dimensions or octaves of consciousness within every density. And what we're talking about here is being who lives in a reality based on density, and their density is not a non-physical density. My understanding, though, my understanding could be somewhat flawed, is that every density has less and less mass, is less and less physical. And the fourth dimension is the astral realm for the third dimension. And the sixth dimension is more of a, but there's also higher and lower astral realm in the sixth dimension. My understanding of densities, I shouldn't use the word dimension continuously, is kind of like the astral realm for the fifth density. And that is a more non-physical realm, and they exist in a much higher octave in that density. And that what I'm getting here is that one of the reasons they are working so much with humanity to elevate humanity so that they can then ascend into seventh density. That's what I'm being shown right now.
Okay. So how do you see, you know, like we all talk about, we're all here for a purpose. Like I know I am, you know, you talk about people coming back or whatever, and you just know, right? But what is the, what's my train of thought here? What is the, sorry, I lost it. Lost my train.
Well, you were asking about purpose and about
I'm a little fatigued because I got that thing going on, right? Yeah. Well, yeah, I forgot my train of thought. Do you remember what I was saying? Sorry.
No, all I know is that you said you had a question about purpose.
Purpose.
I just want to say quickly while you're thinking, because sometimes if somebody else talks, you remember right in the middle of when they're talking, and then you can interrupt me.
Exactly. Yeah, I hate that when that happens, but it's an old age thing, I guess. And I don't know.
Well, it's also an evolutionary thing, because we begin to live more in the moment, and our memories become less clear, and our vocabulary becomes more difficult to grasp. And so please, know that it's a part of the evolution. I just want to be kind of a little bit careful and have a bit of a cautionary message here. Just because we have a near-death experience and come back with any knowing or psychic gift does not mean that those psychic gifts are clear or free from interference. So it's really important for each of us, depending, from my perspective, it's very important for each of us, dependent upon our message or our purpose or how public we want to be, or if we want to be in the realm of charging people money for our gifts, to ensure that we begin to undertake a journey of self-awareness to help us see where we still have attachments, or where we might be getting messages that are not coming from our true authentic soul or true loving benevolent guides. And there's a lot of that going on. So I just really want, we all can only accomplish whatever it is we're capable of accomplishing in every day. And we grow and we shift and we change, and we have different experiences and different beliefs and different perspectives almost on a minute by minute basis right now, because we're all evolving so quickly. But please know that just because someone has a near-death experience, or just because someone possesses psychic gifts, does not necessarily make them any more discerning about your truth than you are for you.
I remember my question now.
Good.
So what, I mean, they've given me my view on it. I won't go into that, but I'm just interested in what you think. Why are the Sasquatch you're contacting us at this time? What is their purpose in reaching out, them and other teachers and guides? Because there's obviously something going down these days. So
didn't they just say that 10 minutes ago? Didn't they just say they're
here
to
reawaken,
help humanity evolve so that they eventually can evolve themselves?
Yeah. Okay.
All connected.
Yeah. That's what that's it. Yeah.
There's another piece.
Go.
And there's another piece I was just shown, and I want to say that this holds up to be true for me in my experience of other dimensional beings. I was shown that they have such a compassion and an understanding and a desire for all souls to be free, and a purpose that wells forth from within them to be in alignment and to experience oneness again, that
Right.
they are truly here on a true loving mission to contribute to the ascension of the entire universe. And I
Yeah, I
can
like
tell
that.
you, I'm sorry.
I like that.
I
I
don't
can-
really like it. I agree with it.
I can tell you from my personal experience, that is not the agenda of every race that people get very excited about being contacted by. One of the things that I can feel and sense within a being is their true soul essence and their true, I call it my bullshit meter.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are many people who are very excited about being abducted or going on ships, and they're being experimented on by service to self and regressive beings that do not care if we live or die. And the only thing they care about is their own evolution and saving their own skin, because they ascended through technological means by using frequency to ascend rather than healing their own heart and authentically expand their consciousness and elevate their frequency. They have chosen to manipulate the life force energy of the universe and to game, let's say, game the system to ascend. And now they reached a point where they're going to go extinct because they are no longer connected through their hearts to the one true creator source.
Do you want to blow the
And-
whistle on some of these? Can you give us an
You
example?
know, a lot of, I mean, there's people working with beings who are hive mind species. Hive mind species assimilate souls. They are anti-consciousness species. They work with artificial intelligence. All they want is our DNA so that they can become the greater, stronger race. It's not for me. I'm not a cosmic whistleblower. It's not for me, I don't think, but I want people to understand, and I am getting full body chills, my bones are vibrating, that this is a thing. So please use your discernment. And if a being
And
wants-
it's a very old thing. Okay. This stuff has been going on from the time of Pan to the time of Lemuria to the time of Atlantis to the time of the Egyptians, and we're still in conflict with these service to self beings now, and the Sasquatch have been with us along this journey of the resistance to the cyborg weirdness.
I would say that my recommendation on that is that you can feel the authenticity of the energy. You know, if you can read the energy from the source, like when I'm getting lit up, oh boy, I'm getting like just chills. Like when you get lit, when you feel the Sasquatch love and whatever, and their purity and just the unselfish connection thing, or whatever, you just know it's pure. You can tell from the energy. So I think that everybody has different ways of reading energy, and some can do it better than others. But I think that the secret is if you can just tell in the vibration or the energy of it.
I would like to share a story. It's not the story
You agree with
alluded
that
to.
though, or as
Yes,
far as, because energy
Well-
speaks truth, right?
but not all people have discernment, because some of us, our hearts are shut down
Of course.
and they
Or
don't
we
know.
unconscious, or we have denials, or we, or
All
we
of
have
those
trauma.
things. So I would like to share an experience that I had. And what you were saying, Brian, was making me cry, because I can feel the contrast. I can feel the contrast between authentic love, authentic honoring and reverence, and what comes forward as shiny gold energy, and it feels very warm. So I'd like to share an experience I had about
Oh boy, I'm getting, wow. Whew.
3 or 4 years ago. I have paid so many people $300, $400, $500, $600, $800 an hour, and I am telling you that nobody I have ever paid that much money an hour has ever had any loving, benevolent impact on my entire journey, ever. Period. End of story. I paid a woman who was on TV, people that are celebrated because they had PhD or they had a master's degree and they had a wonderful life and they sacrificed it and went to India and learned how to become a healer. And now they have somehow, social authority, cultural authority by that. And it, it validates their psychic gifts. So this was true for a woman that I saw on TV. And she became very well known for being a medium and just randomly fell into it in New York at some party and then started doing it. And so I paid her $360 to do a reading for me 3 or 4 years ago. And she says, the first thing she says is, these interdimensional beings are coming forward and they're very shiny and gold and they feel so warm. And they're telling you, Ginny, they are so proud of you and you're doing such good work on the earth. And they would like to invite you to work with them to bring through certain frequencies for the earth. And my bullshit meter went off and I said, that's very nice. Please tell them that I only work with beings who are in service to the oneness and who love me unconditionally. If they can say that is true, please invite them to continue their conversation. And she goes, oh. And I said, what? Oh, wait. She gave me the message and then she said, and I have to, so she said, they want you to help bring forward frequencies of Earth. And I have to tell you, the first message that comes through is the most important thing for you to hear in our whole conversation. So this is very important for you. And I said, oh, thank you. Please tell them that I only work with beings of unconditional love. And then she goes, oh. And I go, well, what did they say back? And she said, you're too smart for them. And they left. And she goes, nobody has ever questioned my channeling before. And I said, I didn't question your channeling. You clearly channeled a being or beings who were pretending to be of love and light, who were not, who were trying to trick me into some sort of soul agreement to either thwart my purpose or thwart humanity's purpose. And I said, no, you channeled correctly. And then she started yelling, I am a clear channel. And I said, you are very clearly channeling, very clearly. That is clear to me. You are clear, but you are channeling false information.
Wow.
And she
didn't like that.
She did not like that.
Yeah.
She probably didn't give you your money back either.
No. And I can tell you that I have had variations of some type of similar experience with many people who charge $300, $400, $500, $600, $800,000 an hour. And it's been nothing but a lesson for me to go with my internal guidance and continue on my path.
There you go.
Okay, but let's for just a regular person or whatever, like, I mean, I know how I can read energy and whatever my feeling on it, but how would just a layman or just a regular person, what would you say, how would you recommend that they discern between positive contact and negative contact? What are the things to look for, the differences, the false flags, that kind of thing? You know what I mean?
Well, this is my opinion. I can only give you my opinion and my suggestion.
Yeah.
Firstly, if a person is not self-aware and has not undertaken some practice to be mindful, to manage their own energy, to become self-aware, whether it's yoga, breathing, something to communicate with other people, to not end up in a vacuum down a rabbit hole by themselves, guided by God knows what astral entities, then why in the hell would anybody want to talk to anything that's not from Earth? Because we have enough problems here. So I would never give advice like that blanketly without saying, firstly, please undertake a journey of self-awareness to begin to heal our own hearts and to begin to become self-aware and ground ourselves and to have clarity about what is happening within our own energy field, which is, I believe, why the Sasquatch are pushing the notion of healing and self-awareness. So that if and when we begin to understand this is a part of our soul agreement to have this contact or to work with other aspects of self or to begin to operate in a community such as this, we then would have that discernment. Now, what can we do? There are hundreds of paths to take, hundreds of paths, but a healing path will help a person naturally, authentically open to the proper functioning of their psychospiritual apparatus. Anyone who just wants to be able to see or hear, but has no desire to be self-aware or understand the human energetic construct and what we are at the effect of all day, every day, it's a bit of a bypass. It's a bit of a jumping ahead. So I would be remiss to give an answer to your question without having said all of that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because we're too easily duped.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a question for you that a lot of people are always asking, and it's actually quite interesting. If you want to answer it, what is the lifespan of a regular Sasquatch? And there are also I think there are ancient ones or the wise ones or the elders or whatever, and there are the regular kind of Sasquatch. What is the difference? Is their lifespan different? Kind of thing.
So about a half an hour ago, Ari came and said we are complete, and he wasn't going to answer any more questions. So that's not.
Brian didn't listen. I heard it.
No,
I know.
So, I mean, I was given a bit of a vision, but it's more from the Akashic unified field. It's not channeling your guide.
No, I was listening. I wasn't asking you for me for him specifically.
But
I was asking in general.
I have no conscious intellectual knowledge of that answer, but I can tell you what I saw in the field is that there is no one answer to that, and there are different species, and that I was getting anywhere from 400 years to ancient 1,000, 1,200 years, but just kind of in the field that came to me. But again, this is all so new to me. This is like the third or fourth time I've ever, worked directly in my conscious awareness with the Yeti. So to purport that I'm some sort of expert on them would be far-fetched.
No, but it's a question that people have been asking for a long time and are very interested in. And it also, but your answer resonates with what I heard too. So that's good.
What I'd like to hear, that, and this would be the second time of you telling the story, but for the people who are going to watch this, because I'm sending it out to groups, is could you tell the story of how you went from being a person who was doing a lot of healing work on themselves, and working with animals was not on your radar. Could you talk about how you transitioned from working on yourself and working with humans until because it was kind of like a foretelling, and it was pretty profound. I think this will help people really get an idea of the scope and the level of your engagement with horses and with so if you could go into that, I'd like it.
Sure. Well, I had been a horse owner and a dog owner and a cat owner and an animal lover, but I was really sick for a long time, and then had an overdose of unintended overdose of prescription medication. And following that, I expressed psychic abilities, and that sent me on a journey to figure out all about it and, what all this was. And eventually, 4 or 5 years and, many miles and thousands of hours of study later, I decided that it would be okay to give people messages and let them know what I was seeing, sensing, and feeling, even though I knew I wasn't completely healed from all the trauma of this life and other lives. but there were people that were very, very interested in it. So I started in around 2014, 2015, kind of just saying, okay, if you have $20, I'll tell you what I see, you know. But I wasn't healing people. I never really intended to heal. I would just give messages. And I did that for a while, and it got overwhelming. I had clients all over the world. By 2015, I was on the phone 8 or 10 hours a day, and I had to take a break from that and do my own healing again. And then when I was ready to start working with humans again, about 2016, as I was working with the humans, animals would come in, and I would say, oh, do you have a white cat? Or when you were a little girl, did your grandmother have a cat? Or is there a neighborhood dog that recently passed away that wants to give a message from someone? Or, oh, do you have a black horse that's alive now? He wants to talk to you about a problem at the barn, or, you know, maybe he has ulcers or problems with his feet, or animals started coming in. And so it got to be a little bit annoying to me. And so one day I was meditating, and so I'm like, why are all these animals bothering me? You know, I'm trying to work with people here. I'm trying to share my experience of healing on my journey and work with people. And these animals are coming in and it's kind of stealing the show. What's that about? And this very large, one of my primary guides, horses from the soul family of horse, came forward and said, don't you remember? We're the ones that guided you on your journey. We were in your most recent near-death experience. We saved you and told you to come back. We told you to remember that you had something important to do. And now we want you to apply everything you've learned about healing yourself and human trauma and the human energetic construct, and as you call it, the human condition. And we want you to apply that to animals, because there aren't enough people talking about animals now, and that A, they are sentient beings and can make choices, or B, that they actually do have opinions, judgments, and experience pain and suffering and trauma. So this is what we want you to do. And I'm like, well, that's ridiculous, because I'm not an animal communicator, even though I could talk to plants and animals. And, you know, from the time I had my near-death experience, I said, nobody knows I'm an animal communicator. I don't have marketing. How is anybody going to find me to know? And they said, don't you worry about that. And, or she said, it was one particular being, to my knowledge, giant face in the room. And so a few months later, I'm woken up in the middle of the night, go to San Diego. Now, what? Go to San Diego? I don't know anybody in San Diego. I live in Arizona. I'm not going to San Diego. I got things to do. A couple hours later, go to San Diego. I am not going to San Diego. That's ridiculous. I don't know anybody in San Diego. Why would I go to San Diego? A few hours later, it's like 5:30 by this time. Wake up and go to San Diego. And I'm like, damn it, I am never going to go back to sleep now. So I got up and I made myself a cup of tea and I turned on my computer, and there was a giant fire in northern San Diego County that displaced 1,000 horses. And, you know, just under, I guess, 100 horses or so were taken to a facility that needed serious veterinary care. And just over 900 or so were taken to the Del Mar Fairgrounds to have temporary housing during the fire. And potentially, if there was fire loss for their facility, they would stay there until they could be relocated. I got up, took a shower, packed my bag, and I was on the road by like 7 or 7:30 driving to San Diego. I knew nobody. I knew not where I was going. I had some friends that lived about an hour outside of San Diego. So I called them and I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in the area. Maybe I'll come and visit you. And they said, we just bought a house in San Marcos. It's empty. Do you want to stay there? And I said, well, yeah, because I don't think I want to. So I stayed in this empty house that had electricity turned on and running water. And I went to the Del Mar Fairgrounds, and people were taking pictures of me and videoing me working with the animals, and animals that had to be sedated by the vets were calming down in my presence. And I was able to give some, I guess, very profound messages to people. And I got people contacting me on Facebook. Will you come to my house while you're in the area? I ended up staying there for a little over 2 weeks because I started going out to people's barns and facilities and giving messages and talking with the horses. And I guess people were private. At the time, I didn't know about private Facebook groups or anything. And I guess there were all these private Facebook groups sharing that I had given accurate messages and talking about me behind the scenes. And within those 2 weeks, I probably got 200 or 300 clients in the next year. And then I had a very interesting experience that I had fallen in love with one of the horses that I communicated with, and she had been a rescue horse at a rescue, and I wanted to bring her home to Arizona with me, and I was trying to facilitate that. And she died in the process of transport. There was an accident. And it was a very unfortunate experience. And to that time, I had never had a lot of exposure to rescued horses or the plight of horses. I mean, I had been a horse person and owned horses, but I was very sheltered. I took riding lessons and, vaquero horsemanship, and sort of kept in my own little bubble with myself and my husband. And so I became aware of the tremendous need of exactly what my guide said, for people to believe that horses could be traumatized. And so I decided that I would set aside X amount of dollars, several tens of thousands of dollars, that I would donate that year to sanctuaries and rescues, and to try to figure out what my soul purpose was all about. And I ended up traveling all over the US and Canada that next year, working every day with hundreds of clients, in person with hundreds and hundreds of horses, with what I can only consider tremendous success, because there's hundreds of testimonials on my website. And I'm busy every day. There's not a day that I don't work with a horse, unless I purposely, intentionally take a day off, which it never turns out that I can take a day off, because somebody always has an emergency. But nobody's more surprised than me, A, that I had a near-death experience and I had psychic senses, B, that my own healing journey, which is all I wanted. I didn't want to heal the world. I just wanted to heal myself and get off of medicine, that would somehow parlay itself into sharing my journey with other people. That was a tremendous bonus. And then to find out all of a sudden I'm in a community of horse people that frankly don't really believe in animal communication, let alone to the level that I work, which is very, very esoteric. So I've picked a very tough row to hoe. I really have. But I want to say to both of you that I think you'll resonate with this, that with respect to it somehow working to me, working with the Yeti and being told to change my website to, promoting interspecies communication, that I have felt all along every day as if I was being tested. Some of these things that worked, like the lady with the aliens that wanted me to work with them, right? It was like, boy, that felt like a test. Boy, that felt like a test, just constantly being tested as to how ethical, how responsible, how I'm going to work with people, how I'm going to talk to people, how I'm going to empower people, what choices will I make on my journey, and what will the possibilities be for me to live, really what I consider at this moment a remarkable life that I could have never imagined for myself. If someone said, manifest your perfect life, it sure wouldn't have looked like this. But in hindsight, I can't imagine it being any better. But that's the story.
I'm so glad you told that story, because I see the scope of it. It is huge. It is gigantic. It is life-changing. And your imprint on the world now, you're multinational and across the United States, and working with all these people. And and then after that, you really became on the radar of the Yeti and the Sasquatch, because like you're a mover and shaker in something that really needs to happen. And that is inner work and interspecies communication. Inner work and interspecies communication is what's really needed on this planet. And that'll raise our vibration untold. Because look at what happened, because you had a soul contract, a soul connection to one of the larger souls of the horses, like the horse boss or whatever. I don't know what you call them. The old days they call them gods. So you had you had a bear god and a horse god, and they were like the main representatives for that species.
Today you would, or some people would refer to it as the overlighting deva, and I
Right.
call it the oversoul. So
Right, the same idea, but that's been going on forever. There's a spokesperson for each species.
right.
We had a new question pop up. Want to hear it?
Awesome. Yeah.
How can I, this is by Eric James again.
Okay.
How can I raise my vibration to a level that is productive to communicating with the beings I have been having experiences with? And he's talking about Sasquatch. I come from a Christian background, and this adds confusion to my thoughts. I'm brand new to a lot of this, but I know in my heart that all of this is important with my growth and journey.
Well, I'm going to speak to the second part of the question, the statement he made, and then I would like to respond to the question he asked. I have a lot of friends who currently practice different religions, who actively go to church, Mormon, Protestant, Lutheran. And a small percentage of those friends, albeit small percentage of those friends, are consciously self-aware and have taken some type of shamanic introduction to shamanic training, or healing touch, or Reiki, or maybe even, some sort of quantum healing, which it's just a fancy word. It's the same thing we've been doing all along. Make no mistake. And I have a woman that a friend who I'm quite close to, who won't really speak publicly about her level of self-awareness, because she knows it would be agitating to those in her church community. But she is consciously getting messages from her guides, and she is aware of that. And she is aware that she can speak with animals, and that she has discernment and she has intuition. And I would say that all of our journeys are very personal, very unique to us. And in whatever way you as an individual can reconcile with the God of your own heart, the God that you feel inside of you, that is what is important. It doesn't matter what I or Brian or Michael, obviously we think we have something to share, or we wouldn't be here talking. But what matters is how you feel and what you believe. And this is just my opinion. You didn't ask for a lecture from me, but I'm sharing because you said it troubles you. It gives you concern. And I would say to you, go out into nature, away from your phone, away from your car, sit under a tree, swim in a pond, do a salt float, put your feet on the earth, your hands on the earth, and begin to talk to the God of your own heart, the soul, the fractal of the soul that you are, that is an aspect of God in your heart, and begin to do some self-inquiry and ask questions about you and your journey.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I can't really say too much more about that, because from there we could go in 18 different directions. But to answer your question about how you can raise your frequency, I do want you to please add into that line of questioning, how can you heal yourself and make yourself a more healthy, balanced, grounded individual? And in so doing, the opportunity to communicate in a greater way will develop, because our lower chakras, the wounds of our lower chakras, our community, the world where, the culture we're born into, the masculine, feminine dysfunction, the sexual distortion, the interpersonal relationships, the self-doubt and the unworthiness issues, all directly contribute to the level to which our psychic senses are opened, or the function or dysfunction of the psychic senses. And yes, can we do mushrooms or ayahuasca or MDMA? Can we do those things to have temporary experiences, openings, and opportunity for healing? Yes, but I don't recommend it for everybody, because a lot of people do have significant side effects. And a lot of people who are offering experiences with plant medicine are not in right relationship with the plant kingdom, and they are misusing it. And if you really study what the indigenous cultures truly believe about plant medicine, it is reserved for when the animals are dying or the crops are failing or there's some illness in the community or the tribe that is unexplained. And that's when the true mystical shaman resort to the plant medicine. There are very, very few cultures who use plant medicine constantly as a backdoor into spirituality or some sort of a bypass. Yeah. So there are many, many ways that we can raise our frequency, but please don't confuse raising your frequency with healing and opening your own heart and listening to the true voice of the God of your own heart.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, Eric, get into your heart. Get into your heart. That's one thing the Sasquatch people do with me. They've made me a heart thinker instead of a mind thinker. It's that's my secret anyway.
Well, one of the things I'm most fond of, and there are 50 or 100 different, things out there. You can listen to music, you can listen to high vibe music, you can listen, there's binaural beats, there's all these different things. I'm not a fan of most of that. One thing that I have experienced that has worked for me and my clients and my students is something called alpha theta brainwave meditation. And there's a former neurosurgeon named Dr. Jeffrey Jeffrey Thompson, Thompson, who has some of his music for free, and you can buy the CDs used on the internet for $5. He became a millionaire by working with corporations after experimenting on working with his clients because they weren't healing. And he was a very famous, very highly educated, very experienced doctor who then traveled around the world like so many other osteopaths, naturopaths, functional medical, specialists, etc., who have gone into the alternative world. And he has created some really incredible music that helps to balance the left and right hemisphere of the brain, alpha, theta, brainwave meditation. He also has gamma brainwave meditation. I suggest starting at alpha. And if you listen to it with like Bose headphones or Centerpoint headphones, Centerpoint with an E on the end.com, centerpointe.com. There are some incredible headphones for like $130 or so. And if you can do that and listen to the alpha meditation until you can stay awake through the whole thing, most people will fall asleep. That will also help you work with the subconscious mind. Very sort of similar to what the Silva, I think it used to be called Silva Mind Control Method, used to teach. And if you can set your loving intention to address any subconscious programs or patterns that are limiting you from manifesting your highest potential in this life, you will have a greater experience and begin to probably see or have an understanding of what types of things are available, excuse me, to you. I think I'm supposed to give this man a message. Excuse me, I'll finish my sentence and then give the message to you to begin to remove the programs from the subconscious mind. And it can look like a control panel. And this man, again, his name is James.
Eric.
Brian? Eric James.
James.
I feel like I'm supposed to give him a specific message because when I my throat is being interfered with. It either means what you're saying is not true or give somebody a message. And this one is, I think, a message. And by what you're saying is not true, I actually had that experience when I was working with a horse, and the woman asked me a question, and I answered from my horsemanship experience that what was available to treat a certain condition or whatever. I popped into my human mind and I said, well, this might work. And I went, and the horse said, I didn't say that. So I get checked by spirit if I say something that wasn't intended. But so for Mr. James, let me see here what is coming through for him. Oh, the consciousness of his own soul. Please be gentle with yourself. Please be kind and know that these types of journeys are an unfolding over time. Please be patient. Please care for yourself well. Self-care is a theme here. Please know that the work you are doing in the astral realm would literally blow your mind. And when the veil is lifted and you remember the truth of who you are, you will know that you have already been experiencing what you so deeply crave on a much higher level. And it is with love and compassion for all that you have experienced and achieved in this life that I say to you, goodbye for now. So that was his soul talking to him.
You initially started working with people before the animals, right?
Well, yes, because I would go to healers and they would tell me, well, you have to do this or that. And I'm like, okay, I've done like 2 or 4 or whatever 1,000 hours of this, and what you're saying is not complete. So here's my experience, and I can see my own energy, and I can tell you that what you're saying, it might work, but if you add this to it, or if you take this away from it. So that's, yeah, because I had a much greater awareness of self on a journey from total ignorance to devouring all of this information. It was incumbent upon me to share what I had learned. Like I couldn't not share it. Yeah.
But who was giving you this? How are you getting this information for the people specifically? Is it their guides, and how do you get it, and what's that process like? Like obviously from you and Beans, from what you've been talking about, you're about healing your soul and all that stuff or whatever. So how's that all work as far as your interpretation, and where do you get the information from?
Well, if you're asking me today, or how did it happen after my near-death experience, it's completely different. So after my near-death experience, remember, I had a lot of trauma in all my chakras. So my normal psycho-spiritual apparatus and the transmediumship space and my voice, my hearing, and my seeing were totally muddled from all of the trauma. But what I experienced following that second near-death experience was a literal direct workaround to my higher self, and my higher self would feed me information. So in the beginning, I was being guided directly by my higher self without any distortion in between. So I was really given a gift, an absolute gift of the most truthful information that my higher self could supply to me, provide to me. And when I first started working with people, when I first started just randomly seeing and telling people things as appropriately as I could, it was directly from my higher self, not coming through the normal psycho-spiritual luminous architecture that a human who hasn't had a near-death experience uses. But now a lot of those pathways and connections and distortions have been lifted, so that I am able to use my own internal psycho-spiritual apparatus and I'm able to communicate, serve as a medium and communicate with people's soul and with their guides. So today I'm getting information directly from people's soul and their guides. It used to be that I got information directly from my higher self, who was communicating with the people's soul and their guides.
What's the difference and what's the advantage? Obviously, as you're evolving, it's more important for you to get it from them, right? Wouldn't you think?
I think if a person chooses to evolve at the soul level and heal and become self-aware and has a mind toward looking to the next incarnation and what will the soul's experience be in the future, it is imperative to begin to be self-aware and use and heal all of the distortions that are preventing us from receiving true and accurate information from ourselves and from others. Does that answer your question? Now, I'm sorry, part of your question was which is more beneficial, or?
Well, I mean, initially it was your higher self that was supplying the answers. Now it's their higher selves or their guides or whatever. What's the difference?
They were different questions.
What? Not a different question. That's what I said.
One question is, when you're doing your healing work, you want to know the information from your higher self, but that's when somebody's coming to you for advice, then you want to get from their higher self. That's the two different things.
But I just want to qualify that. And I said it, but it might have gotten lost in my too many words that I was using. I'm sorry. My higher self was telling me directly, but the higher self was getting information from the other person's higher self. Or guides or Akashic records.
So now you just skip that step. You just go directly to them.
And it's not skipping. We are not meant to have that magically. Some people do. Some people are born and they're totally clear and they don't have distortion and they've never had any trauma. And I haven't met that many people like that. I was talking to a couple on the airplane once, and the lady said, and she was talking, looking on my Facebook page and stuff, or my website. And she's like, oh, she goes, do me, and so I gave her some information or whatever. And then she goes, oh, you have to do my husband. He's never had trauma in his whole life. And so she asked her husband, can she look at your energy and find she'll not find anything. You've had the perfect life. And I go, and I immediately, without even thinking, I go, well, what's this right here? And just below his sternum, and I put my hand like this. You can't see it on the video. What's this? And they both turned white as a sheet. And I went, what? And when he was born, he was diagnosed with a heart condition, and they waited till he was 2 years old to do the surgery. So he does have trauma, and he does have energetic misalignment from the trauma of the surgery when he was 2 years old. And I was, immediately able to talk about that. So
another, I'd like to add to Brian's previous question about how it works, and to add to your point of view of who we are. And we're, like you said, we're energy beings, but how it works is that we're connected to everything. We're connected to every person, place, or thing in the universe, and we're connected to every point in time in the universe. And it's really kind of a good change of perspective for people on the planet Earth to know this. That's how remote viewing works. That's how a psychic phenomena works, is we're connected to every point in time and space. Now that it is us, that's how sensitive we are. And anybody who can actually choose to tune into the difference between the current now time and space and a future or interdimensional or a past life or a higher vibration or whatever that is, it's just tuning in. It's all happening now simultaneously. And this is a great shift. It's a great shift that the animals live in, and the plants and rocks and the gods of old. So that's who we are. We're profoundly connected to every point in time and space.
Absolutely. No question.
And that's how all this psychic phenomena works. It's really one thing, our connection to the energy.
Yep.
Did you want me to answer the original question you asked, or did you feel like you answered your own question in talking about your perspective?
You talk,
Do
no,
whatever you want.
go ahead.
Your original question was, can you talk about who we really are?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah.
So,
That's part of it.
so my experience in working with souls and kind of seeing sort of like the org chart of souls and looking at it from different perspectives through the Akashic records, traveling through the Da'at, which is the 10th position on the tree of life, basically the portal to wisdom, and through other journeys and astral travels, as well as working with humans and people. I hate to hijack another person's story, especially if I don't tell it perfectly, but I think in sharing it, it might give a little tiny perspective how I perceive about the soul level, because this story that a gentleman recently told and wrote a book about, I think his name is Christian, and he's out publicly now talking about his memories of his pre-birth experience as a soul, choosing to come to Earth. And I'm going to do my very best to share his story, which I very much resonate with. So he said he was hanging out in the ethers. Somebody wants me to talk about something. I'm not sure what it is, but I'll tell the story. And hold on, I have to ask what is going on. Tell the story. Okay. And he's like sitting on a park bench in, let's say, heaven, right? We'll just use it as an example. He's somewhere in the universe in some density, and he's sitting on a park bench, and this soul walks by, and he's like really impressed by the magnificence of the soul. And he goes, "Hey, mister, hey, how'd you get to look like that? How'd you get to embody that color and those qualities and that frequency?" And the guy goes, "I went to Earth and I faced my greatest fear." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to do that, right? I'm going to do that." So he went and he talked to his guides or his soul council, whatever you want to call it. And they go, "I don't know, going to Earth is really difficult. Are you sure you want to try it?" And he said, "I want to try." So he went to the training and everything, and they did these simulations, kind of like, I guess, going in a holodeck or something to experience what it would be like, the dense energies of Earth. And he said, "Oh, this is really hard, but I think I can do it." And they cautioned him. They said, "Oh, it's really going to be hard." And so he came and he incarnated into the fetus, right? And he was like, "Get me out of here. This is horrible. I cannot stand it. This is horrible." And he was naturally aborted through natural process because he chose to leave. And so there was a miscarriage. I apologize for using such an inflammatory word. I didn't mean that.
Do you think, I have to interrupt you here. Do you think that is generally a choice? Miscarriages by the soul coming in?
Either by the soul, or it can be influenced by the mother as feeling like at the soul level having unresolved maternal wounding, or maybe murdered their kids in a past life, or their children died and they felt responsible. And I mean, it could be 101 things. It could be 1,100 things. So back to the story. So he left and he said, "F that. I am not doing that. No way." So he was taken for what some people refer to, and again, I apologize if I'm not telling his story perfectly, but he went to the life review process. And in the life review process, he was shown the lamenting of the mother, the sadness, the grief, the tremendous distress this caused the mother. And in that understanding of how much grief he caused the mother, and again, I'm paraphrasing, he then agreed to come back and try again. And he went through that process again, and more training to devolve the energy to come here. And I had a client a couple of weeks ago who said, I remember being a being of liquid light before I came here. And they were asking for volunteers to come to Earth, and they were struggling in the universe to find souls that were willing to come to such a dark place and help. And she said, I remember clearly volunteering and how much work I had to go through to devolve, to step down my energy, to get to the point where I could get on a spaceship to have a conversation with the 100,000 or so of us that were going to be willing to incarnate. And it was very, very difficult. And here I am, she said, and I am very lost. And this is a very unpleasant place to be. So as we all know, there are a lot of theories about what type of reality we live in: the electric universe, the holographic universe, the conscious universe. But I think most of those theories embrace at least one shared concept, which is our souls are eternal. And this is more like a dream or an illusionary experience for the purpose of the soul evolving. So that's how I would answer that question, Michael, about who we are. There's an interesting book written by a guy named Guy Needler, Needler, and it's called The History of God. And for the most part, in the beginning of the book, the first half or so of the book, I resonate with a lot of that sort of org chart sort of development and creation story. I don't necessarily recommend at all any of his other books, but that one in particular might be interesting for people who are who have an interest in that type of thing. Is that helpful at all, Michael?
Yeah, well, my fallback understanding is that we're infinite and immortal, and we come from what was never created. Therefore, nothing really can hurt us. We can only have altered our energy to where it's discordant and painful, and then we can eventually bring it back to harmony and joyful. But planet Earth is one of the places where you can do things that you can't on Earth that you can't do in other places.
Why is planet Earth, or I mean, why is the human experience, because we hear this all the time, why is it so difficult? We always say that the human experience is the most difficult thing you can go through. Why is that?
The extreme polarity and duality, the free will to bring harm to another, the extreme emotional range, distress, all of the extraordinarily dysfunctional, satanic ritual abuse, war, murder, destruction. And it's gotten out of, my perspective is it's gotten a little out of control here, beyond, I think, the original intention of divine beings to experience free will and duality.
We're usurped.
Your near-death experiences. What did you experience?
Well, I had a near-death experience when I was 3 months old, but I did not have conscious understanding of it until after my last near-death experience, round about 2018, in an intuitive healing session that I was participating for myself in. I had a spontaneous, what we would call hypnotic regression to a near-death experience when I was 3 months old. And I became almost violently hysterical, angry, sad, everything you can imagine. I had whooping cough, and in this life, I physically was in a hospital, packed in ice in a tent, and had turned blue. And my mom told me when I was maybe 12 or 13 that I had this experience, and the doctors didn't think it looked good. They didn't know if I would make it, and it was whooping cough. And so in the regressive experience, spontaneous regressive experience, I experienced that near-death experience viscerally, not as a witness, but as my soul going through that experience. And I was propelled into a black velvety space, and there was a booming voice that I perceived to be, God or the creator. And I said, I begged, please don't make me do this life. Please, I can't handle it. I was in that womb. I know that woman. I'm going to be abused, sexually abused, molested, traumatized, raped. I'm going to be passed from family member to family member, and nobody's going to know what's going on with me. And they're all going to think it's me. And it's going to be a horrible life. And it's, no, I cannot do this. And I fought back and forth 7 or 8 times with the voice of the creator. And he kept saying, you have to go back. There's something important you have to do. And in the end, I was just screaming, and I was hysterical, laying on the table that I was laying on, receiving the healing. I was sort of in the fetal position, hysterical, angry and sad. And the very last time we went back and forth, he said, I will make you stronger to make it through. And he sent me back in, and I cried for half an hour, 45 minutes hysterically in that woman's home. And she was crying. I could feel her tears dripping down on the back of my head because I was laying on my stomach on a massage table, and her tears were dripping on my head. And she just felt so much compassion for me. And it was after that experience that I was then aware of why I could never find this core. In my core, I knew there was some anger, but I could never identify where it was coming from. And so that spontaneous regression was a gift to help me face that anger and forgive the creator for sending me back. And had he not made me stronger in this life, I would have been dead, a prostitute, in jail, drug addict. I mean, who knows? And thank God I never was any of those things except dead.
Wow, that's an amazing story. In my remembrance of my past lives is that, like, I had this mission to do of I did not even know until I was like 65 that what I'd already done was my mission in life. But my mission in life was to learn about wounding and how people can heal themselves. And in order to do that, it was, looking back on my past lives, it took 3 lifetimes of basically effed up stuff, trauma and unimaginable stuff and low vibrational stuff to get me wounded to the point that I could handle this lifetime, and then to do my recovery in this lifetime. So I can feel you on that. It's just sort of like people think, we have an agreement to come to this lifetime. That's not entirely true. It might be 6, a dozen, 12 lifetimes to get you to the point where you absolutely have to do your healing and be awake and conscious and supported while you're doing your healing. This is not something you just do overnight. That's kind of like the hero's journey on steroids.
Yeah. I did have an altered reality moment once, though, where I was just here, and then all of a sudden I was somewhere else, and I saw myself on the other side planning to do exactly what I'm doing today, like the work that that I'm doing and whatever. I saw myself there planning it. I guess it was a pre-life, like how they say, like, you go into a life and you plan, I want to experience this for my last, this, that, whatever. This is probably on a bigger scale because of what we're going through in the world and the conscious shift or whatever. But it certainly showed me that there is a pre-life kind of planning on what you want to accomplish or whatever coming into the world.
In the conversation that Michael and I had yesterday that we recorded, that was another 2-hour conversation, I went into detail in a couple of remarkable experiences that I had that weren't technically near-death experiences by the definition that people work with today, but where it's pretty fascinating. So if you share, I think it's fascinating, I guess, maybe I shouldn't have said that. If you share that other recording, if people have any interest in that type of thing, Michael and I go into just hours of talking about healing and my healing journey. And we didn't talk about my second near-death experience, or I might have just glossed over it.
Yeah.
But that was, I had been a diplomatic protection agent. I worked for Vance International, and the primary client was a royal family in the Middle East. And I had a very serious job, and I became very ill. And that was because I was on the wrong track and I wasn't living my soul purpose. So I was taken offline, and I was bedridden for many, many years. And I refused opioids because I thought I would go back to work, and I carried a gun. So I never wanted to take narcotics or opioids. And eventually, after 7 years of trying all non-narcotic medicines, I was on fentanyl, and then 4 years on fentanyl. And one night my brain forgot to tell my lungs to breathe. So I was propelled into a space, a white space. My Christian upbringing, Methodist upbringing, the person that would make most sense to meet me there was a man that looked very much like the white person's version of Jesus, or Yeshua ben David, or, whatever his true name was. He said, "Come with me, you suffered enough." And then I heard a bunch of noise from behind me, and I turned and looked behind me, and there were like 40 horses and 70 donkeys from a rescue that I had volunteered at prior to my near-death experience. And they were screaming in human voice, "Don't go, don't go. Don't you remember there's something important you have to do?" And I can say now that that's the same thing Creator said to me when I was 3 months old. "You have to go back. There's something important you have to do."
That's interesting, because it seems
So
like a conflict, doesn't it? Why would that? Who was that was telling you to go with them if you had work to do? Isn't that a conflict? That doesn't seem right. That guy,
I think it was a choice, and
it was a
like,
choice. It was
really
a
up to
choice.
her.
It was a choice. It was an out clause. It was yet another opportunity for me to leave or stay. And I was given the option to live the more miraculous, profound life experience and heal myself, which is the important thing I had to do. Make no mistake, it's not any fancy, job description. It's me healing me, gathering my aspects and unifying and evolving and ascending. That's the important thing that my soul had to do, right?
I understand that. I understand that. It just seemed like he was very definitive, like, "You're coming with me," kind of thing. But it was like a.
Yeah, but if he had told her you got to go back, then she would feel defeated. She didn't have a choice. But at this point, she was given a choice, and she stood in her power.
I totally understand that. It's just that the way that it was said is kind of like it wasn't like, "Do you want to come with me?" It was like, "Come with me.
You've suffered enough." I don't remember exactly. "You've suffered enough. Come with me." Right? You've suffered enough, and it's true. And it's true. I suffered enough in this life for a dozen lifetimes. Make no mistake. But when the animals said, "There's something important you have to do," I was immediately back in my body. But when I came back in my body, this symbol hanging over me was the symbol of a martyr, Joan of Arc, a Knights Templar type of a symbol. So it was pretty fascinating. So I worked a lot of that out. But we're talking a lot about soul purpose, and I've been keeping notes over the last couple of months with some of my clients on some of the line items that things that souls wanted to experience. And I thought you guys might enjoy if I shared a couple of these.
Yeah.
You got it.
So I'm not going to use names or sex or anything, but so one person's agreement, some of the line items on this person's agreement were: number one that I got was never to forgive God. Number two, never to forgive myself. Number three, to allow great harm to come to myself as a function of the belief that I deserve to suffer.
Ooh.
Number 4, to forgive my parents, but not to forgive others around them. So the grandparents who traumatized the parents were never forgiven in her family. And so these are basically experiences to overcome, lessons to learn, to, to not blame God for our choices, right? It's obviously her purpose isn't not to forgive God, it's to overcome the feeling or the belief or the overwhelming urge never to forgive God, right? And in fact, the first time I met with that person, and this is probably the 3rd time that I met with her that this came through, her crown chakra had a block in it that wasn't allowing her soul star chakra, the higher self information, to come through. And when I looked and I asked what it was a voice screaming, "I'm not God, I'm not God." So that was pretty fascinating.
Oh,
Another one.
Those were kind of what do you call it, a to-do list. This was a
Yep.
to-do list of going to Earth.
Yep.
Wow, because this whole thing of this God thing is like, I'm not worthy in the eyes of God, or God wants me to suffer, or never forgive God, and those kind of things are they're like core.
Yeah.
People don't think, people say I'm not good enough, but underneath that is I'm not good enough in the eyes of God. So what I mean, it's always that next level,
we got
because
to understand we're all part of
the
God.
soul
right?
level, God
Exactly.
is a creator of everything.
We're all parts of God expressing himself.
Yeah, our souls created this construct. Right.
God is the expression of everything in creation.
Right.
Kind of.
Okay, so I'm not bringing these forward to have a philosophical conversation about who or what God is. I'm just sharing some agreements.
No, that's my understanding. I think we're all expressions of God expressing himself or whatever. Or I think that's the right way to say it.
Go to the next one.
Okay. Number 1, feelings of abandonment. Number 2, fear of being overwhelmed. Number 3, fear of pain and suffering. Number 4, fear of being alone. Number 5, fear of being wrong and unworthy to guide others. That was somebody who has an amazing podcast that needed to overcome some of these, to say, okay, I've learned enough from having these experiences and I'm ready to let that go so I can launch into sharing my experiences with other people. And remember the one where I alluded to this earlier in the conversation, where I had someone come to me and they said, I'm just constantly judging other people. What's wrong with me? Right. So one of his was fear of being alive, which is very true. And the next one is fear of being in judgment of others. So they experienced being in judgment of others. Another one on this person's list was a lot of unkind adversaries, conflict, not being in alignment with self and others. And that person experienced that their whole life. And then another thing on that person's list was being at the effect of the hierarchical distribution of wealth or a caste society. And so having an experience on a planet where the distribution of wealth is seemingly unfair. So those are some pretty interesting things. And when people realize these overriding themes in their entire life, and they never knew why they felt a certain kind of way about something, that's what they're meant to witness, for the most part, to witness, forgive, and let go of. And then people get new levels of soul agreement in this life to continue on and, learn and grow in new levels and experience different things.
And that's mind blowing, because that these people, there are people who are tortured and raped and passed around, sold into sex slavery as a child, and just so much stuff. It goes on and on and on into their 20s. And then by the time they're 30, they actually work all this stuff out, and they have a smile on their face and they have confidence. And, it's to me, that's such a sign of hope. No matter how bad it is, there's a recovery, there's a possibility, like when you finish that, or when you there's a beyond suffering, there's a beyond the path of wounding, there's a life beyond that. And so if it's just a soul contract and it's something you came to do, and once it's done, it's done. So there's actually hope in that.
Right.
It's not you're not chained to the what do they call it? And what's that song? Chained to the something. But anyway, you're not chained to the wheel of karma forever. You can actually transform it and evolve it in this lifetime.
Yep. And I've heard for myself and others more than a handful of times, pain is a choice. So we need to go to the moment where we made the choice to experience pain. And earlier in the conversation, I think in the first hour, and we've been on almost 3 hours now, I had mentioned that I had an experience with a horse and we were talking about, oh, just choose the light, or just be happy, or it's just a choice, right? And I said that I had an interesting conversation with a horse about that. Would we have 5 more minutes for me to share that, or are you guys ready to wrap up for the day?
No, we're good. We're good. How good are you? I have a few more. Sorry, I have a few more questions for you, actually. So how good? How are you? What's your?
I think physically I can go 15 or 20 more minutes max.
Okay, that'll
that would include if I could run and get a glass of water, and then
go get a glass of water.
And then I want to say, Michael, I think that me clearing my throat for the last 10 or 15 minutes, I think there's some kind of a message for you to be delivered.
Okay.
But I am being guided to share the specific message about the horse.
Get a glass of water and do whatever you want.
All right, I'll be right back.
Wow, this is such a high level.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah,
how do you like my background today?
Stuff that needs to know. It looks like an eyeball. Looks like a
cosmic big giant
eyeball.
heart.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but when your head's in the middle of it, yeah, it looks like an eyeball. Or maybe it's just your aura that's full of like this chaotic stuff.
Maybe my whole head looks like an eyeball. I don't know. Yeah, she's fascinating, man.
And just to think that just all this stuff happened to her from like 2015, 2016 till now. That's some major stuff to like be involved with all the psychic stuff and healing humans. And then she went out to California, and there was 1,000 horses and stuff. How epic is that?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. And and how many times have we heard of people having gifts, reacquainted or reintroduced to gifts and abilities, or however you want to say it, from near-death experiences?
Well, what's interesting is she's a professional. For all people who say, oh, this psychic mind speaks not real, she's a professional. And it's not only is she a professional, there's like hundreds of professional animal communicators. And there's also hundreds of professional, medical intuitives, or psychological intuitive people. And meaning they get paid to do this as a business, and it's a way to get income. So it's all real.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to make in my opinion, and this is like really, it's like very basic or whatever, but there's only one reason why we are here. Our incarnations. Only one reason. That's to return to love. We're created from love. And our goal, our lessons, everything is, and I'm getting hit up big time, is to return to love. That's our whole purpose, because love is the vibration. I
think you should write a song about that.
Oh, I'm sure I probably have. But really, that's
having these experiences where we don't feel worthy of love, or we don't, feel that we can connect to love, or we don't accept love. I mean, these are all tremendous experiences that help us, I think, contribute to our level of compassion and humility.
I want to ask you one question, and then maybe we can, and I want you to say what you want to say, because you have to wrap up soon. But the other side, is it an actual place, or do we create it? I mean, if for instance, if I feel that I deserve to go to hell, for instance, because we are creators, we know that, can I end up going to the place that I think I deserve to be, or whatever? Is it our own creation, or is there an actual physical or a reality or a consistency about it with everybody? That's yeah. What do you think of that?
That's a big question. That's the $64,000 question. I've heard a lot of theories. There are extensive teachings in this in Hinduism and Buddhism, the Bardo teachings. Fascinating information, the Egyptian philosophy, Christian philosophy, Islamic philosophies, Mormon philosophies and perspectives, different indigenous teachings. I think on Earth, if we're coming back and incarnating on Earth again, it is relative to what we believe for the most part when we pass. I mean, famous people have written famous books about being in limbo for, a certain number of years, or being in nirvana, or being in what they perceive to be hell, or being in a crystalline palace, or being in, as Michael Newton, who is a famous doctor who hypnotized 7,000 people and documented all of his clients' testimony, channeling under hypnosis. And they all said the same thing. There's a school, in between lifetime school, where we make our choices and we review our past life, and we reunite with all of our friends and buddies and our uncles and aunts and our husbands. And, it's all this place that, it's an interesting perspective. I'm not saying I buy into all of that stuff, but I think there's validity to all of it. And I think it's different for Earth. If your question is cosmically universally universally beyond, I think, this planet, my understanding is when we pass, we can just go anywhere we want. We can choose to do the evolutionary, infinite journey back to source, as some people say, or we can choose to jump around. My understanding is a lot of people tend to resonate with sort of sticking with soul groups, which means certain planetary or galactic experiences. I'm not an expert on the construct that we live in. Some people call it the matrix. Some people call it a consciousness grid that we live in for the Earth. I've heard them all, but like I said at the beginning, I try to just say today I resonate with, and with that, in that regard, I don't really have an intelligent answer for you, Brian. Like I just know too many people that have had too many varied experiences and read too many books, that purport to know the be all end all. And I think, isn't that just a fascinating question? And isn't that the great mystery and journey for us to experience here? And I'm hoping that as we evolve and our planet and our race ascends to the fourth density, that those in between life experiences do begin to open up to greater potential for us on the planet. For that, I can say that I certainly wish that to be true for all of us.
Oh yeah, now I remember.
Don't ask any more questions, because she's getting to me next.
See, now when you said that, now I forgot my question. So I guess you got what you wanted. It was a good question too.
I'm sure it was. You're filled with good questions.
You had a message for Mr. Beans though.
Yeah. Well, let me tell the horse story real quick.
Horse story.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm at somebody's ranch. I'm sitting in the barn in the breezeway in a chair, and I'm meditating. And the horse, who's a Norwegian fjord, says to me, and I'm in Arizona. he says to me, it's hot here. I'm miserable. And so I opened my eyes and I looked at the woman and I said, don't you belong to some fjord clubs? Didn't you used to live in California? Don't you have a lot of friends who have fjords, you know, riding all across the Southwest and desert environments, Arizona, California, Nevada, New Mexico? And she goes, yeah. She goes, in fact, I have a friend who has a horse named such and such. And you know, they're in Southern California, Riverside. It's quite hot there. And that horse doesn't have any problem. And all of a sudden, the consciousness of that horse shows up in the barn. And I'm like, oh, hello. And he says, hi. He goes, yeah, the heat used to really bother me. And then one day I just made a choice to be happy and the heat doesn't bother me anymore. So I'm like, whoa, this sounds a lot like people telling humans just make a choice to be happy, kind of fleetingly in my mind. So I turned back to my client Fjord and I said, well, he just made a choice to be happy. How about you? And I had talked to this horse 2-3 times. And the horse shows me like a Grand Prix jumping course. So for those people that aren't horse people, when you watch on TV with the real fancy horses and they're jumping over the high jumps, right? Yeah. And they're going in different directions and beautiful $300,000 horses. He shows me this jumping course. So the arena with the jumps, and he shows me a vision that in front of each jump is a pile of laundry. Each jump has a big pile of laundry. And so that was his vision to me, his demonstrating to me that his trauma was preventing him from just making a choice to be happy. And that's why I had been working with him, because he was quite traumatized. He had been sent to multiple trainers, had multiple owners. People kept judging him, projecting horrific opinions onto him and labeling him this and that, when he was one of the best trained horses ever, because he had so much training. He could do tricks, he could do all kinds of stuff. He just had strong opinions about not trusting people and thinking people were full of it. And that was his accumulated baggage, his trauma, the reason why he showed me he couldn't just make a choice. And so we talked about this earlier in the conversation about people say, just be the light, just raise the frequency, just, you know, just, you know, it's so simple. Just look out at the stars and clear your mind and tap into your heart. You know, guess what? Some of us have trauma that actually literally prevents that from happening. Now, we can go to therapy. We can maybe do mushrooms. I'm not an expert. You know, you can do, of course, you can do all these different things that we talked about earlier. You can undergo this, you know, the Western model of self-analysis and go to therapy. You can work with an intuitive. You can use self-inquiry. You can do salt floats, listen to music, tuning forks, you know, healing modalities. But some of us came here to actually move the trauma from in front of the jumps so we can jump the course. Some of us, that's our chosen experience, right? So I just thought that was such an interesting experience that one animal was telling another one, just be the light, just make the choice, just be happy. And then one animal said to me, I can't because I have trauma. That's what's going on with humans. Isn't that so fascinating?
It is, it's core understanding. And one of the understandings is you don't have a choice until you install the ability to choose. And that means you have to do the self-examination. Is this true? Is this not true? Is this working for me? Is this not working for me? You have to do that examination, and that gives you the ability to choose.
So what's the difference between me, for example, with trauma and everyday like fears and all the stuff that we're dealing with, and when I'm on my highest vibration and everything is perfect?
Well, so I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
Boy, thank God for that, because this would be another hour.
I've studied thousands of hours, though, about the effects of trauma on the nervous system and our lives. And I've studied a lot about it only because it's so fascinating to me. And I've tried to apply it to the energetic effects and draw correlation. There is a difference between literal trauma and anxiety. There is a difference between anxiety and personality disorders. There are a lot of differences, and I don't know that I'm qualified to try to educate your audience as to what those differences are from the perspective of energy and from the perspective of having challenging experiences in our lives, being met with someone else's opinion or projection, making choices that create energy processes or subconscious belief systems in our mind. I can speak to that till the cows come home, because that I have about 20,000 hours of experience in seeing it, hearing it, feeling it, witnessing it in other people. And there is a difference energetically as well. But your question, Brian, was what's the difference between being there and experiencing your elevated state? And the best way that I can give you an answer for that is
no, what I mean is that I have no trauma in that elevated state. Everything is perfect. So
okay.
Right?
You
so
are
go ahead.
You do in your physical life, in your physical body, in your luminous architecture, have some people call them pain pictures, wounds, unresolved, unforgiveness, unresolved traumas. You still have it,
I do.
But you are experiencing your consciousness at a higher level. So again, the best way I can describe this to you is that the goal is to have a clear pranic tube, clear channel, and gather up all the ways that our consciousness, or our light, if you prefer, is stuck in some of those memories, and restore all of our light and clear up the chakras so that more of our soul, the essence of our soul or consciousness, can come down and be embodied. And we begin to express our consciousness free of trauma and distortion, and begin to then actually reunite with our oversoul and with what people call the Christed oversoul, and then eventually the I am presence. So what you're talking about is at multiple points a day, we may be expressing our consciousness from different places. For example, if we astral travel and we do so from our sacral chakra, or we do so from an emotional perspective, the emotional body, we only experience past trauma. If we astral travel through a higher expression, that our astral body, our heart chakra, then we're going to be able to actually perceive the future that Michael talks about, us being connected with all points in time. We may be connected, but do we have access? It is the conversation which very, very few metaphysical people discuss. The only person I've really heard discuss it at any length in their genius teaching is Michael Tamura, who's a clairvoyant educator. And he had 5 near-death experiences, and the golden beings of light on the other side asked him to teach this. And he was involved with the Berkeley Psychic Institute for some time as like director of programs or curriculum or something like that for some time. And I apologize if I got his job description wrong, but he worked for the Berkeley Psychic Institute for about 20 years. And he goes into detail about how we express our consciousness, at what level we express our consciousness, if our consciousness or parts of our consciousness are being held back in these experiences, which we would say in psychology, the brain has not yet processed. So the trauma is being stored in our body, right? The memories that are wrapped up in emotions and judgment that aren't being released and properly stored in our vast fountain of, general information and experience as just experience. It still has emotion attached to it. That has everything to do with the level of consciousness through which we express our lucid cognitive awareness. So when we have these moments of accessing universal or galactic chakras above our head, above the soul star chakra above our head, it's temporary, it's fleeting, it's not, it may be who we are at the higher levels. And that's very true for all of us. For all of us, we have aspects of ourselves that are much higher. But we are here in this life for a reason, not to escape, not to dissociate, not to journey and run away from the experience we are having now. And so from my perspective and for my clients and the people that want to talk to me and listen to me talk, we talk about how do we express our consciousness, gather up and clear all of the wounds of the lower chakras so that we can express our consciousness at least at the level of what people call Christ consciousness, the sixth or third eye chakra and above.
Okay.
All right, Michael.
I guess you can maybe wrap up and say something or give us a message or an over. Oh, did you have the message for, you didn't say anything about Beans yet, his message.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's something. It kept trying to come and, okay.
Yes, let's talk about me for 5
Talk
minutes.
about him. It's not, if it's not about me, it may as well
I
be
never
about
get
him.
talked.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about me except that I'm the most handsomest man in the world.
Well,
I know, I'm tired of talking about myself, so let's talk about you.
you are so beautiful to me. Can't you see?
Be quiet. There's a process going on here.
This is fascinating. You know how you said a few days ago or a week ago, you found a feather at your house?
Yeah, it's right there. I think it's a hawk feather because it's not it's too big for, it's brown. It's
I
not
got
white.
chills, so I get yes on the hawk feather. The message is that feather was from the divine feminine consciousness of the Sasquatch.
Mm.
And that the part of that consciousness that left you the feather is wanting to work with you to offering its consciousness as guidance, or it's not a guide because it's not a being. It's literally a consciousness of the Divine Mother expressing itself through the Sasquatch that is offering you, and I think to some degree, I feel it's also somehow offering me to work with you, to work with me, to support us, to offer us healing and support, and to know, and again, I'm not trying to make this about me, it just happened, but Michael, to know that you are being guided by grace and by a divine feminine consciousness that transcends our human experience of masculine and feminine. And I feel like this trying to point out similarities between what you in your work are trying to accomplish and what I in my work am trying to accomplish, and you and I do align very, very closely, not necessarily literally perfectly, but very, very closely, and basically offering to you this guidance and literally offering you this guidance and partnership and encouraging you to stay on your path.
That's good.
Yeah, I think
Anything
that's the
else?
totality of it.
Anything else?
anything else? You got his attention.
It's like that's kind of vague, you know. I mean, just to help me on my path. It's like
All of that is going to come to you in your gnosis.
okay.
All of that, whether it's sleep time or messages, or you're being guided to read a book or listen to a song or visit a website or call a certain person, or
Yeah.
Or you get inspired to pull a book off a shelf you haven't seen in 20 years. Happens to me all the time. I open it, I read one paragraph. It's like, that's what I needed for my client today, you know?
Yeah.
I live that way a lot. It's just like, you know, I showed you yesterday that I was making these PowerPoint presentation on judgments and denials, and the day before I had seen something about judgments and denials, or I saw a quote on Penny Kelly about, you know, about being what they call a multiple personality disorder. She talked about the singular personality disorder. That's what human beings have, is because we're not connected to the multiverse, we're not connected to the higher selves or any other spiritual beings, that we have singular personality disorder. And both multiple personality disorder and singular personality disorder are not good modes of transportation. You know what I mean? You got to have flexibility and
Individuation. I think there is, something else that might be offered to you, but it would be private and personal. So after we're done recording.
all right.
All right. Did you want to wrap up with some thoughts or a message or something? And because it is 3.5 hours, and I mean,
How
like,
can people reach you? How can people give you love and praise and
Well, I don't know about,
profit?
I don't know. I mean, if somebody wanted to have a session with me, heartofthehorse.us is my website, heartofthehorse.us, or just Google my name.
Horse is a horse, a horse, a horse, and no one can.
And I do have another website that's just my name, ginnyjablonski.com. But, you know, it's just a very limited website that redirects you to Heart of the Horse. So.
Okay, I should have sang the song after you were talking. Sorry.
I heard you.
He was the original talking horse, right?
Heartofthehorse.us. That's my website. And
Heart of the Horse.
my mind is fried. We've talked so long. I don't have another thing to say.
Heart
Sorry.
of the Horse US.
Yeah.
Well, check that out. And Jenny, I am so glad that I got in contact with you and had you on the show. And obviously you and Mr. Beans have a very special connection. And I could tell you're right on the same page as far as what, you know, your teachings and whatever. So that's so, you know, no coincidence.
There's few like you. You have to, you know, to have committed themselves to healing work and then have integrity afterwards. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
then.
you.
So should we wrap it up there, my friends? On behalf of Port Cunningham and my honorable distinguished co-host, Frank Oliver Beans, this has been the Pork and Bean Show. Our special thanks to Jenny Jablonski for being our guest today. And it was wonderful. And hopefully everybody enjoyed it. And thanks to everybody for tuning in and all your wonderful questions. And we will see you again next week with another exceptional guest. Thanks, Jenny.
Bye.
I love you so, don't you know, I wanna make old play. All the buttons coming down, taking my phone, hot and high, hot and high, hot and high, 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 high. For the tummy, oh my, love a big old plate of pork and beans. Goody, 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 goody. Love it, love it, love it. In the tummy, love baby, love hard, love ooh, love wide. I love me some Bowling Way. Don't you know you gotta need that feed, that feed. You got to have some pork and bean. Pork and bean. I'm ready, I love Bowling Way. Yo, mashed potato. Oh, have it now, don't wait for later. Hot and high. Come get your health and come see me.